Chapter 577. The streets were filled with endless traffic, and on the sidewalks on both sides of the road, there were couples carrying large and small bags, families strolling around the mall with their families, and even men and women carrying briefcases in a hurry. At first glance, the atmosphere was serene and peaceful. At the end of the street, in the parking lot that was only open to special guests, a man and woman stood on a small observation deck that could only accommodate a few people, watching everything on the street below. Today was the first day that the Scandinavian diplomatic group arrived in Abu. After the welcoming ceremony held by Jimmy to welcome the Scandinavian diplomatic group, the person in charge of the Scandinavian diplomatic group had a discussion with Lakis. The official communication would be handled by the Scandinavian representatives, while Lakis and Ray Minkai would pay a friendly visit to Abu in the name of thanking Abu for sending a representative to attend the banquet. However, the purpose of this friendly visit was to free Ray Minkai and Lakis from the cumbersome diplomatic procedures, allowing them to move freely in Abu, which was also a neutral country. "So you're all here. Is there anything interesting down there?" While Ray Minkai and Lakis were observing the street below, Carrie's voice sounded from behind. Ray Minkai turned around and saw a scene that was no surprise to him. After changing into her military uniform, Carrie's actions were even more careless than when she wore her formal dress. Her actions did not show any signs of having received etiquette education. "Good morning, Carrie." Looking at the manly Carrie, Lakis smiled. At this moment, Lakis's words and actions were more princess-like than Carrie, the daughter of the Prime Minister. Under Lakis' invisible aura, Carrie was clearly taken aback for a moment. Then, she subconsciously restrained her boisterous behavior. Ahem. In order to cover up her stiff movements, Carrie coughed and continued. "Entrusted by the Prime Minister of Abu, Jimmy Nara Asha, I'll be in charge of leading the two of you around Abu. Please give me your guidance." Seeing this, Ray Minkai and Lakis looked at each other and smiled. They were not surprised. In the public list of children of Abu's leadership, Carrie was the only one who was similar in age to Ray Minkai and Lakis and had interacted with them. Therefore, only Carrie could be sent to receive the two of them. Of course, putting aside their interactions, there were children of Abu's leadership who were similar in age to Ray Minkai and Lakis. However, due to various reasons, the second generation of Abu's leadership would not be one of the top choices for the mission. "Thank you very much. We're very happy to see you again, Carly. I didn't expect you to be the daughter of Prime Minister Jimmy." Lakis had said the same thing during the welcoming ceremony yesterday, but Carrie still felt a little embarrassed when she heard it again. Fortunately, Sasaka, who had been following behind Carly all this while, spoke up in time to help Carly out of this situation. "Ms. Carrie, it's not early. The Dawn Society has already made arrangements." "Oh, right. It's not early. If Audrey, you don't have any objections, let's go." Lux had also heard the name that Sasaka had mentioned. "Okay. I just don't know where our first stop will be." Carrie chuckled and glanced at Lei Minkai, whether intentionally or not. Our first stop is Dawn Society. It's the industrial group responsible for developing Abu's defense equipment. Dawn Society. After the battle that caused the entire colonial satellite to collapse, Dawn Society's upper echelons continued to send out requests. They invited scrap merchants from all over the world to recover the industrial equipment and data on the collapsed land. Paul Jewell, the man who claimed to have the luckiest man in the universe, was naturally one of them. Among the many scrap merchants who participated in the recovery of the colonial satellite's industrial equipment and data, his spoils of war were exceptionally dazzling. It was a new MS that was currently at the forefront of the world's attention. Since Zaft used the first MS in human history and Jean completed a counterattack against the Earth Union, who had an overwhelming advantage before the war, the world's attention was focused on whether the Earth Union would develop a new MS. Therefore, in the collapsed land, Luo, the luckiest man in the universe, got the two bodies called heresy. The blue heresy was given to Tsong Yunming. The red heresy was left to himself and became his beloved machine. Under this background, Luo, who came to Abu to complete the request, was naturally left behind by Erica Simmons, the person in charge of the development of Abu's new MS, to assist Dawn Society to complete the OS system that would allow natural people to smoothly pilot the new MS. Luo had no objection to this. Anyway, for him this was a new request, and naturally there would be a lot of income. Luo, how are the preparations? In the central control room of the experimental center, Erica Simmons, the person in charge of the development plan, opened the communication and asked Luo, who was sitting in the cockpit of Abu's new MS, there are still some steps left. Wait a minute. Don't worry. We can take it slow. Erica Simmons has suffered a lot of setbacks in the development of the OS program used by natural people, so she is not in a hurry. Moreover, today Dawn Society also welcomed a distinguished guest. Erica Simmons didn't seem to want the distinguished guest to see the embarrassment of Dawn Society, which is responsible for the construction of Abu's national defense. Time passed by little. Staying in the cockpit of the new MS, Luo was still cooperating with his AI Little Hachi to debug the newly written OS program, trying to find bugs hidden in many programs, and making the OS program as feasible and perfect as possible. Under this concentration, the atmosphere in the entire central control room gradually became focused and serious, and everyone was devoted to their work. At this time, the automatic door of the central control room opened. The sound of the door opening attracted Erica Simmons' attention. As her eyes moved, she saw the face of the girl who took the lead in entering the central control room. Carly Yura Ashar? The person leading the distinguished guest today is her? Erica Simmons was naturally no stranger to the girl's face. It's just that she didn't expect that today's visit would be led by Carly. Good afternoon, Director Simmons. These two are the distinguished guests who came to our Abu yesterday. This is Audrey Sass and this is Kay Brittany. Carly first introduced the two distinguished guests behind Erica Simmons, then turned to introduce Erica Simmons to the two distinguished guests. Audrey, Kai, this is Director Erica Simmons of our Aubrey Twilight Society. Erica Simmons. When Carly introduced her, Raymond Kai's eyes moved away from Erica Simmons' face and looked behind her of the huge space behind the thick glass. A steel giant with a shape very similar to a certain MS in Raymond Kai's memory was standing there quietly. M1 Heresy. This is the latest MS developed by Abu alone, and it was exposed in front of Ray Minkai and Luck. In the blink of an eye, Ray Minkai's eyes retracted from the M1 Heresy and fell on Erica Simmons, who was talking to Erica Simmons. Most likely, the innocent Abu Princess Erica was used. Kai. Lux called out softly. Presumably, Lux also understood the situation. To be so open about the development of the latest MS in their country in front of foreign distinguished guests, no one would believe that there was nothing behind it. Ray Minkai waved his hand slightly, telling Lux to calm down, and waited for the Dawn Society to continue. If Ray Minkai's speculation was correct, from the moment the M1 Heresy was exposed, the mastermind behind the scenes who used Erica as a tool should have made an appearance. Moreover, the Dawn Society did not belong to the Ashar family, but another family called the Sahak family. Okay. Director Simmons, the procedure is complete. We can enter the testing phase. At this moment, a voice sounded in the communication channel that caught Ray Minkai's attention. Ro Jewel? The appearance of this voice reminded Ray Minkai of the time in the desert when the super lucky guy helped him repair Baku. Enter the testing phase. Ro, cheer up. Now, there are distinguished guests watching our development project. Erica Simmons gave Erica, Lux, and Ray Minkai an apologetic look, and immediately went back to work. Distinguished guests? Oh, I know. Then watch me. Ro, who was focused on his work, did not notice who the distinguished guest's Erica Simmons was talking about was. He only nodded confidently and started the OS program of the M1 heresy. Oh, it's moving! The moment the OS program started, the M1 heresy, which was connected to the power source, lit up its electronic eyes. Under the watchful eyes of everyone in the central control room, it slowly moved and took its first step. Boom! The moment the steel body, which weighed more than 53 tons, took its first step on the ground, everyone in the central control room seemed to feel a vibration quickly transmitted from the soles of their feet to their bodies. It's moving! The M1 heresy's first step was very stable, and everyone could not help but look forward to the next action. However, the moment the M1 heresy took its second step, the heavy steel body trembled violently and then fell to the ground with a loud crash, leaving everyone stunned. Sigh, it seems that it failed again. Erica Simmons sighed as she looked at her subordinates who were scrambling to deal with the failure of the experiment. Director, wasn't it walking well just now? Erica clearly saw that the M1 heresy's first step was so solid, but it fell to the ground the moment the M1 heresy took its second step. This made Erica a little puzzled. Miss Erica, it is very difficult to develop an OS program that can be used smoothly by natural people. Then, Erica Simmons turned around and apologized to Lei Mingkai and Lakis again. Sorry. I'm sorry for making a fool of myself. Lux waved her hand gently. No. For us, the existence of MS is undoubtedly a new thing, and it is natural for it to fail once or twice. Yes. After all, it is a new thing. For some reason, Erica Simmons still looked in Lei Mingkai's direction, intentionally or unintentionally. The treatment of the failure of the experiment was in progress. Due to the prediction that the OS program would fail in advance, the steel cables used for traction had already been fixed to the shoulders and back of the M1 heresy, which made the maintenance team in charge of the treatment greatly relieved. Otherwise, this big guy weighing more than 53 tons would be enough to give the maintenance team a headache for a while. Law, this is the 33rd failure. Law, who was holding little Hachi and looking at the maintenance team, could not help but shake his head when he heard his partner's words. The OS program that could run smoothly on the Red Heresy failed frequently after being ported to the M1 Heresy. This made Law very puzzled. Is this really the end? Inferior person, you can go now. While Law was thinking hard about how to complete the OS program of the M1 Heresy, a voice that made him extremely unhappy and extremely arrogant sounded. Law looked up and saw an arrogant face and a pair of eyes full of contempt. Law did not recognize this face, but the voice was somewhat familiar. Who are you? The confusion on Law's face seemed to arouse the man's anger, but the man was not angry at Law. Instead, he looked up where the central control room was located. Erica Simmons, won't you ask our distinguished guest to come down? This unexpected invitation stunned the people in the central control room. Everyone in the central control room knew the identity of the person who issued this invitation. Lund Hiner Sahak. He was the second son and heir of the Sahak family, the island where the Dawn Society was located, and the island where the Dawn Society was located. Although the current Lund Hiner Sahak was not the current head of the Sahak family, his words still carried weight in the Dawn Society. Otherwise, Erica Simmons, the director of Aubrey's Twilight Society, wouldn't have been ordered to assassinate Carrie on the eve of the final battle. Lund Hiner Sahak, what do you want? Although Lund Jinar Sahak had said it was an invitation, his tone was arrogant and haughty. This immediately made Carrie unhappy. Who am I talking about? Just the canary of the Ahak family. Lund Hiner Sahak did not feel respect for the Ahak family behind Carrie. Instead, he showed contempt. Lund Hiner Sahak's arrogance and contempt made the central control room fall into a strange silence. But at this moment, Lei Mingkai took the initiative to speak. Carrie, may I ask, how should we go down? Kai Yu. Carrie tried to stop Ray Minkai's idea. Ray Minkai waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. Sahak can be considered the master of this place. Since the master has invited us as guests, we should naturally respond, right? Audrey. Lux exchanged glances with Ray Minkai and smiled sweetly. Yes. As guests, we cannot refuse the master's invitation. Carly, can you take us down there? Ray Minkai and Lux's alliance made Carrie frown, but she still sighed helplessly. Alright. But if that guy, Lundhiner Sahak, has any excessive requests, I will help you block them. Thank you very much, Carrie. Chapter 578. We meet again, Law. Law looked at the white mask that appeared in front of him. Although the person wearing this white mask gave him a very familiar feeling, the face covered by the mask made Law unable to remember the identity of the person behind the mask for a long time. How? It's been a long time. Don't you remember me? Law. Baku in the desert. Ray Minkai looked at the puzzled Law with a smile and gave a hint. Sure enough. At the moment this hint appeared, Law recognized Ray Minkai. K. Brittany? Why are you in Ob? But Law, who understood, was still puzzled. I say, Kai, why are you wearing a mask? Did you just go to a costume party? Ray Minkai shook his head slightly. When he was about to speak, someone answered for him. Covering your face with that fancy mask. Naturally, you don't want people to recognize that shameful face. The arrogant voice sounded again, making Law frown. He didn't know why this extremely arrogant person was targeting him, and even Ray Minkai, who had just arrived in Ob. However, in the face of this arrogance, Ray Minkai's face was indifferent. Law. It's nice to see you again. But now I have some things to deal with. After a pause, Ray Minkai smiled mysteriously. Perhaps I can even help you vent your anger. What? Law didn't react for a moment, and he didn't have time to think about it. Because, as Ray Minkai walked past him, Lux's voice also sounded. Long time no see. Mr. Law Jewel. You? Are you Audrey Britannia? No. That's just my alias. My name is now Audrey Sass. Is that so? Law found that today's events seemed to be beyond the scope of his imagination. Ahead, Ray Minkai, who stepped forward to face Lundhiner Sahak, looked at him calmly, and was not stimulated by Lundhiner Sahak's provocative gaze. I've heard rumors about you. Just a Baku was able to defeat the man known as the Tiger of the Desert. Lundhiner Sahak's gaze changed as he scrutinized Ray Minkai. It was just a moment of luck. After Lundhiner Sahak recounted his experiences in the desert, the first thing that came to Ray Minkai's mind was that ever-changing face. Jormungand, Bernard, the special envoy of the Eurasian Federation, would not express goodwill to Ray Minkai for no reason. The fundamental reason was probably that Jormungand had inadvertently identified Ray Minkai as the reason for the sudden defeat of the Desert Tiger and its disappearance in the desert. That was why Bernard made such a surprising move. And Lundhiner Sahak in front of him also had an inexplicable relationship with the Eurasian Federation. Under this relationship, Lundhiner Sahak even agreed to participate in the battle to recapture Victoria Airport for the Eurasian Federation in order to let Ob survive the war. Thinking of this, it made sense that Lundhiner Sahak would know the story of Ray Minkai defeating the Desert Tiger. Anyway, it was either Jormungand playing tricks, or Bernard, the special envoy of the Eurasian Federation, threw out the bait of Ray Minkai in order to provoke Lundhiner Sahak to work for the Eurasian Federation. To be honest, Ray Minkai was a little unhappy. Luck? Lundhiner Sahak couldn't see anything from the white mask. In the end, he raised his hand behind him and said to the M1 heretic that had been pulled up and returned to its original standing position. Whether it was luck or not, I don't know. What I know is that only real gold is not afraid of fire. What do you think? Lundhiner Sahak had finally revealed his purpose. But Ray Minkai was not afraid. You want me to pilot Ob's latest machine? I didn't expect the young master of the Sahak family to be so generous as to let an outsider like me pilot your country's latest machine. Lunginar Sahak's eyelids twitched a few times, but he still calmed down. If I say it's okay, it's okay. Besides, whether or not you can make this M1 heresy move is also a problem, isn't it? Ray Minkai smiled slightly and ignored Lunginar Sahak's words. He nodded silently and walked to the feet of the M1 heretic under everyone's watchful eyes. He looked up at the metal lump that only had a body and no soul. Kai, I haven't finished the OS program for this machine. Give me some time. Law, who had watched the confrontation between Ray Minkai and Lunginar Sahak from beginning to end, shouted on the spot, trying to make Ray Minkai wait for a moment so that he could continue to optimize the OS program used by the M1 heretic. However, Ray Minkai only turned around and gave Law a thumbs up. Then he stepped on the suspension ring and slowly rose to the side of the M1 heretic's cockpit. Audrey, wait for me for a moment. I'll be done soon. Standing in front of the M1 heretic's cockpit, Ray Minkai waved at Lux, and Lux waved back at Ray Minkai and nodded in response. Lunginar Sahak naturally saw this scene, but he looked down on Ray Minkai even more. This is the performance of the man who defeated the Desert Tiger? This scene gave Erica Simmons, who was standing in the central control room, a headache, but there was nothing she could do about it. Inform everyone to evacuate the test site. Also, get someone to bring back our distinguished guest. This scene caught Carrie a little off guard. He was obviously Audrey's distinguished guest, but he was provoked by one of Audrey's heirs to the Sahak family, and did not hesitate to board the MS for a duel. What is going on? Lunginar Sahak, is he crazy? Everyone's reactions were different, and their expressions were very interesting. But Ray Minkai was not in the mood to care about these things. After reaching out to fasten the seatbelt, Ray Minkai pulled out the keyboard from the storage compartment on the right side and pressed the start button. He was ready to start the battle that should not have happened, but was inevitable at his own pace. State 0. If you are, help me adjust the control program of the machine's legs. I need some time to program the OS for the other parts. Tisk. Troublesome. Can't you just get rid of that arrogant kid? The moment the figure of the white cat State 0 appeared on Ray Minkai's shoulder, it disappeared from the cockpit like a wisp of smoke. However, Ray Minkai knew that State 0, who had been nagging, had already started to take action. The power was connected. The program started. The electronic eyes of Ray Minkai's M1 heresy, which was painted white, lit up. The OS program started normally. The energy output is normal. The nerve response unit is normal. This is, when the white M1 heresy started, the monitoring staff in the central control room monitored the various feedback signals of the M heresy. But under the normal feedback signals, the monitoring staff exclaimed. What happened? Erica Simmons asked hurriedly. Director, M1 heresy is in the process of programming the OS. It is in the state of full activation. What? It's about to. This was not the time to sit quietly in the cockpit of the M1 heresy and carefully program the OS, but the moment when a fierce battle was about to unfold. Under such circumstances, the distinguished guest from Scandinavia actually chose to program the OS on the spot? Isn't this too bold? Thinking of this, Erica Simmons inevitably looked at the M1 heresy number 2 parked on the other side. It was painted red to identify the serial number. When this airframe was designed and built, it was used by Lund-Hinar Sahak to simulate the performance of the Golden Heresy that he brought back from the collapsed colonial satellite. Therefore, this airframe that looked no different from the M1 Heresy number 1, which was the airframe that Ray Minkai was now driving, had undergone earth-shaking changes internally. It was a special OS program designed specifically for Lund-Hinar Sahak. In other words, the M1 Heresy number 2 could now exert 100% of its combat power. On the other hand, The M1 Heresy number 1 Erica Simmons couldn't help but frown. If they just lost, it shouldn't cause any major problems. But if they hurt Ray Minkai in the battle, even Jimmy, who stood behind Carly, would be put in a difficult position due to the diplomatic pressure from Scandinavia. Audrey, why don't we stop this unnecessary battle? Although Carly didn't think as deeply as Erica Simmons, she vaguely felt that they couldn't continue like this. No. Kai is confident that he can win this battle. Carly, trust me and trust Kai. Carly's lack of confidence didn't move Lakis. Instead, she just smiled to express her confidence in Ray Minkai. The next moment, the wind blew violently. The M1 Heresy number 2 jumped down from the stand and jumped into the air in a few jumps. It was like a rock spreading its wings as it pounced on the M1 Heresy number 1. Programming the OS on the spot? It sounds like something like that, but it's just a trick to deceive people. As the wind howled, the M1 Heresy number 2 swung its heavy fist and smashed down on the head of the M1 Heresy number 1 as if it wanted to smash the head of the number 1 Heresy. However, when the heavy fist was about to hit the head of the number 1 Heresy, it unexpectedly missed. It's gone. Let alone Lundhiner Sahak. Even Erica Simmons, Carly, Law, and the others who were watching from the sidelines couldn't clearly see the scene just now. It turned out that, at that moment, the number 1 Heresy, which stood still and waited for the M1 Heresy number 2's heavy fist to come, suddenly lowered its body and avoided the heavy fist in time. And it wasn't over yet. A black shadow flew up from below and slammed into the abdomen of the M1 Heresy number 2, causing it to fly out. If it weren't for Lundhiner Sahak's quick reaction, the number 2 Heresy wouldn't have only rolled a few times in the air. It might have even rolled a few times on the ground before it stopped rolling. Lucky. Lundhiner Sahak shook his head, trying to shake off the dizziness. The next second, the M1 Heresy number 2 attacked again. However, this time, it wasn't barehanded. Instead, it reached behind with its right hand and a beam sword appeared in its hand. Hum. Hum. As the blazing particles surged out, the low rumble of the vibrating air instantly swept through the space between the two M1 Heresies. Is it for real? Ray Minkai stared at the screen in front of him. He stared at the M1 Heresy number 2 that had already taken out its beam sword. His hands, however, were typing rapidly on the keyboard. Ray Minkai's hands turned into a blur as he typed rapidly on the keyboard. The instant the letters on the keyboard were digitized into new OS programs, the M1 Heresy number 1 that he was piloting welcomed a brand new fate. Don't get carried away. As the M1 Heresy number 2 swung its beam sword, streaks of blazing and dangerous sword shadows enveloped the M1 Heresy number 1. But no matter how terrifying these sword shadows were, the M1 Heresy number 1 remained unscathed. It strolled leisurely around the M1 Heresy number 2 and Lundhiner Sahak's attacks. All system settings complete. All systems on standby. Activate. Lundhiner Sahak became more and more exasperated, but Ray Minkai became calmer and calmer. The moment the last character put a full stop to the new OS program, the M1 Heresy number 1's movements suddenly changed. Fast. Fast. Very fast. In the blink of an eye, the M1 Heresy number 1 broke free from the sword shadows of the M1 Heresy number 2 and circled behind it before it could react. Boom! With just a heavy kick, the M1 Heresy was sent flying on the spot and slammed into an empty support rack. What? That's the M1 Heresy? How is that possible? Quick, bring up the power output monitoring diagram of this M1 Heresy. Erica Simmons, who watched helplessly as the M1 Heretic number 2 that originally had the upper hand was suddenly reversed in an instant. The M1 Heretic number 1 kicked the M1 Heretic number 2 fiercely into the rack. Erica Simmons ordered subconsciously. Boom. Before the others could respond to Erica Simmons, the M1 Heresy number 2 that was kicked into the support rack by the M1 Heresy number 1 struggled to get up from the tattered support rack. It once again waved the beamed sword in its hand and charged over. A futile struggle. Rei Minkai pulled the joystick in his hand and stepped on the pedals. The M1 Heresy number 1 gently moved to the side and once again avoided the slash of the M1 Heresy number 2. Then, the M1 Heresy number 1 raised its hands and firmly grabbed the right arm of the M1 Heresy number 2. In an instant, the right arm of the M1 Heresy number 2 was broken on the spot. Immediately after, the blazing beam sword slowly fell to the ground. It had exhausted all its energy and rolled on the ground alone. Chapter 579. The broken steel arm was thrown to the ground with a heavy thud that woke everyone up. Do you still want to continue? When Rei Minkai's voice rang out from the communication channel, Lund Zena Sahak was already clenching his teeth so hard that they were about to bleed. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. Just what exactly happened just now? The M1 heretic can't possibly have this kind of power. Lund Zena Sahak's voice was hoarse. He knew very well that although the M1 heretic was Aubrey's newest MS, its technology was ultimately derived from the 5 MSs developed in cooperation with Earth. Therefore, how could the M1 heretic do something that even the 5 MSs could not do? It's just a little trick. Nothing to be concerned about. Even though Lei Minkai did not look smug, his nonchalant demeanor had infuriated Lund Zena Sahak. No. I'll never admit to this. Stop, Zena. Just as Lund Zena Sahak was about to go on a rampage again and attack with the severed right arm of the M1 heretic, a cold and sharp voice stopped Lund Zena Sahak in his tracks. You! Zena? Why are you stopping me? Lund Zena Sahak said fiercely as he looked at the girl who appeared on the screen. She had the same appearance as him. Stop, Zena. This is not only Aubrey's guest, but also our Sahak's distinguished guest. Get down from the M1 heretic right now. Otherwise, I'll report this incident to Father in detail. You! The person who interrupted was none other than Lund Zena Sahak's older sister, who was also one of the heirs of the Sahak family, Lund Mina Sahak. The girl who suddenly appeared in the central control room took the microphone from Erica Simmons under Carrie's astonished gaze and stopped the younger twin brother, who wanted to continue the duel in an irrefutable manner. Zena, get down now. Don't tell me you want to personally explain the situation to Father? You! Lund Zena Sahak gritted his teeth, but in the end, he gave up on the idea of continuing to fight Rei Minkai. Not long after, a furious Lund Zena Sahak jumped out of the cockpit of the M1 heretic with a broken right arm. He glared fiercely at the central control room before turning to leave. After his figure completely disappeared from everyone's sight, Erica Simmons slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Miss Minor, you came at the right time. Otherwise, we don't know what to do. Hearing Erica Simmons' words, Lund Mina Sahak nodded slowly and did not say anything. Instead, he shifted his gaze and glanced at Carly before meeting Lux's gaze, who was not disturbed by the battle between MS and Lux. Is this our Aubrey's distinguished guest? Guests from Scandinavia. Lund Mina Sahak sounded like she was asking Carly, but she was actually asking Lux. Lux pulled up her skirt slightly and introduced herself. I'm Audrey SAS, the second daughter of the SAS family of the Scandinavian kingdom. It's a pleasure to meet you. You must be the eldest daughter of the SAS family, Miss Lund Mina Sahak? Lund Mina Sahak raised his eyebrows, seemingly surprised. You've heard of my name, our name, from Carly? No. I've only heard of it from the people around me. Lux denied Lund Mina Sahak's statement and pushed all the blame to the person beside her, Rei Minkai. In fact, the reason Lux knew of Lund Mina Sahak's existence was because Rei Minkai had told her in private. Their exchange of questions and answers seemed very friendly, but as a bystander, no, as the tour guide, Carly, who should have held the initiative, stood at the side like an insignificant character, unable to interrupt. She could only watch the verbal exchange between Lux and Lund Minor Sahak. The corners of Carly's mouth twitched, but she could not find a suitable opportunity to intervene in the conversation between the two. Fortunately, while she was puzzled over this, Ray Minkai returned. And behind Ray Minkai was Law. "Thank you for your hard work, our distinguished guest." Erica Simmons took the initiative to welcome them. Although the battle just now was a little abrupt, from the performance of the M1 Heretic piloted by Ray Minkai, the M1 Heretic's OS program seemed to have been smoothed out by Ray Minkai. He even made breakthroughs in some areas that Erica Simmons did not know about. No, it's just a small interlude. Ray Minkai did not care about the battle just now. That could only be considered a warm-up at most. "I apologize for my foolish brother's reckless behavior, Your Excellency Kai Brittany. If possible, I hope I can invite the two of you to dinner later as an apology." Seeing Ray Minkai's arrival, Lund Minor Sahak, who was chatting happily with Lux, took the initiative to apologize. But Lay Minkai only waved his hand, indicating that Lund Mina Sahak should be apologizing to Rojalai, not him. Law froze for a moment, then waved his hand repeatedly. "No. It's fine on my side. To be honest, I haven't been able to complete the OS program of the M1 Heretic because I'm not capable enough." "Law. That's another matter. If there's a problem with the OS program test, you should be scolded by Director Erica Simmons, not by some arrogant guy who suddenly appeared here." Law's behavior made Ray Minkai a little dissatisfied. He grabbed Law and insisted that Law accept the apology from the Sahak family. "You're right. My foolish brother's actions and words were indeed a little hurtful." After Lund Minor Sahak learned some things from Erica Simmons, he nodded and then generously extended an invitation to Law. "If Mr. Law has companions, why don't you come as well? The more people there are, the merrier the dinner." Lund Minor Sahak smiled lightly, then turned and left the central control room with the excuse that he had something to do. Although the eldest daughter of the Sahak family appeared for a short time, in fact, she left a deep impression in everyone's hearts. At a certain moment, Lund Minor Sahak's performance was more like a princess than the little transparent Carrie just now. "Is this the eldest daughter of the Sahak family, Lund Minor Sahak?" After watching Lund Minor Sahak leave, Lux cast a questioning look at Ray Minkai, and after receiving confirmation from the latter, she turned to look at Carrie, who wanted to say something but stopped, and could not help but secretly shake her head. This country that claimed to be neutral in the human world did not seem to be as good on the inside as it seemed. "Okay. Law, let's meet again later, okay?" Carrie seemed to be affected by the incident just now and became a little hesitant, but this did not prevent Ray Minkai and Law from making an agreement to meet again later. "Okay. That's good. It's rare to meet you then, see you later. I want to hear about the mask on your face." Law agreed to Ray Minkai's agreement, and after saying goodbye to Erica Simmons, he turned and left. Originally, according to the commission, Law would not have been able to leave the Dawn Society so quickly. However, due to Lay Minkai's intervention, there seemed to be a solution to the M1 Heretics OS program. Law's commission became less important. Of course, Law would still get the reward he deserved. And it might even be more than the original. Today really made me break out in a cold sweat. "But, Your Excellency Britannia, I wonder if you can tell me what happened in that moment just now?" Erica Simmons breathed a long sigh of relief after Lund Mina Sahak and Law left one after another. But even though she was relieved, she still could not let go of the strange scene that had just happened. It's just a little trick. Through the OS program, the M1 Heretic's power output was doubled or tripled in an instant, but the price was that the M1 Heretic's power unit was overloaded. Now, I'm afraid the power unit of that body has to be replaced. "What? When Erica Simmons heard this, she immediately turned back to the console, pushed away her subordinates, and personally checked the state of the M1 Heretic. As a result, as Ray Minkai said, the power unit of the M1 Heretic was almost scrapped and could no longer be used. This, if young Master Jean Na still wants to continue fighting just now. Then I'm afraid I have to admit defeat, right? Ray Minkai spread out his hands and said frankly. Of course. If Lund Jeaner Sahak insisted on continuing the fight, he would be the one to lose. The power unit of the M1 Heretic was scrapped because Ray Minkai didn't want to give the key technology to Aubrey. Is that so? Then I know. Then. Erica Simmons understood something, but she didn't point it out. The most important thing at the moment was still the OS program of the M1 Heretic. The OS program of that body has been debugged. If you guys are willing to put in some effort, the OS program suitable for humans won't be too far away. When they left the Dawn Society, it was already afternoon. After the incident with Lund Mina Sahak and his brother, Carrie's mood wasn't too good. Along the way, Carrie seemed to be in a state of absent-mindedness, which caused Ray Minkai and Lakis to look at each other, but they couldn't say anything. Fortunately, when everyone left the Dawn Society, Carrie was taken away by the people sent by Jimmy. She was replaced by Sasaka, a brawny man who wasn't very talkative, who brought Ray Minkai and Lakis to continue their tour. Seeing Carrie being dragged away by people who hurried over, Ray Minkai couldn't help but think of a scene. Lund Jeaner Sahak's behavior and attitude toward Carrie had probably reached the ears of Aubrey's higher-up. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai shook his head slightly. In any case, this was Aubrey's own business, so let him be. But with Sasaka, a brawny man who wasn't very talkative, acting as the tour guide, it seemed, Mr. Sasaka. Can we change our destination in the afternoon? I have a place I'd like to go. Suddenly, Lakis took the initiative to suggest changing their destination. If Carrie was here, there would probably be a conversation, but Sasaka was much more straightforward. Sasaka excused himself and moved a few steps away. He pressed down on his earpiece and softly asked someone on the other end of the communication channel for instructions, then nodded. Miss Audrey, where do you want to go? Lakis smiled slightly. I want to see how the people here live. Since Aub was a country made up of many islands, every island that could be used had different functions. Some were used for residential purposes. Some were used for industrial purposes. Some were used for sightseeing and tourism, or for developing services. The island that Ray Minkai and Lakis arrived at was an island where many Aubrey people lived. Even though it was a working day, there were still signs of people coming and going, not at all affected by the decrease in population after most people went to work. This was especially true in the plaza near the pier. Due to the local festival, the children who had been granted a holiday happily ran to the plaza to play. Amidst the children who were running around and playing, several kites were flying in the wind, making them extremely conspicuous. Brother, look, it's a kite. Let's go take a look, okay? In a corner of the plaza, a little girl wearing a light red dress and a sun hat was vigorously shaking a young man who was lying on a hammock. Don't. It's a rare holiday. Let me have a good sleep. No, brother. It's because it's a holiday that we have to have fun, right? Didn't Dad give us some pocket money when he left this morning? Let's go buy a kite, okay? The young man who was unable to sleep due to the little girl's shaking let out a helpless cry. Then, he sighed and pulled his little sister toward a street stall selling kites to the children. Not long after, the young man who had spent a lot of effort finally managed to raise the kite that he had bought with great difficulty. Wow! It's flying! It's flying! It's flying! Brother! Look! The kite is flying! Looking at the kite that was flying higher and higher, the little girl immediately cheered and jumped up. That happy look immediately made the resentment in the young man's heart from being woken up disappear completely. However, a violent gust of wind howled, recklessly wreaking havoc in the air above the square. Not sure if it was because the kite was made with less materials, or because the gust of wind was too strong, the string that was pulling the kite that had just flown into the air snapped. Ah! Kite! Our kite! The little girl who was barely holding on to her sun hat and not letting it fly saw that the kite was about to be blown away, and immediately shouted. The young man subconsciously threw away the coil in his hand and ran towards the kite that was blown away by the gust of wind, trying to catch it. However, no matter how hard the young man ran, he was unable to catch up to the kite that was flying higher and higher under the gust of wind. Not good! Mayo's kite! The young man who had used all his strength to jump up and try to catch the kite could only watch helplessly as the kite flew away. In the next second, a black shadow swept past the young man and actually caught the kite that was supposed to fly away. Cha! Cha! The young man and the black shadow landed on the ground one after another. This is your kite, right? Under the sunlight, the young man was able to clearly see the black shadow's true appearance. White, a white mask. Chapter 580. A new string was attached to the broken kite, and it flew into the blue sky again with the help of the breeze. Looking at the stall owner who was smiling apologetically, Ray Minkai waved his hand and let him leave. Why did you let him go? It was because of his string that the kite was almost blown away. Someone expressed extreme dissatisfaction with this. That's only a small probability of happening. There's no need to make things difficult for him. Look, isn't other people's kites fine? Besides, your kite wasn't blown away, and you've also changed a new string. That's enough. Ray Minkai turned around and looked at the unhappy youth who had the shadow of the Chunibyu that Ray Minkai was familiar with, but was used as a tool by the people around him. Real flying bird. After Ray Minkai snatched the kite that was about to be blown away, he had already learned the other party's identity from the way the brother and sister addressed each other. That young face. That doting gaze. All of them were telling Ray Minkai that the world was unpredictable, and fate would always play a little joke on you when you least expect it. Ray Minkai didn't expect that he would meet Real Flying Bird in such a way. The youth, Real Flying Bird's mouth twitched, as if he was still a little dissatisfied, but when he turned around and saw his sister happily flying the kite with Lakis, he gave up the idea of pursuing the matter. Thank you. Real Flying Bird put aside his dissatisfaction with the poor quality of the kite in his heart, and solemnly thanked Ray Minkai. No, it's just a piece of cake. Ray Minkai smiled and didn't think much of the attack just now. This was just a coincidence. Under Sasaka's lead, Ray Minkai and Lakis, who came here, saw the brother and sister whose kite was blown away by a sudden strong wind. So, this was just a coincidence. No. If it wasn't for your help, I'm afraid Mayo would be crying. As the youth thanked him, he didn't forget to look at his sister, afraid that the same thing would happen to his sister who was happily flying the kite again. Don't worry. He's fine now. Yes. This chance encounter didn't make Ray Minkai and Lakis stay in the plaza for long. The moment the sun sank into the horizon, Sasaka walked over and signaled to Ray Minkai and Lakis that it was time. A very beautiful big sister, yes, and a very handsome big brother, right? Big brother. Mayo Flying Bird, who had a star hair clip given by Lux in her hair, gently hugged her kite as she watched Ray Minkai and Lux leave. Yes. But why is that big brother wearing a mask? Real Flying Bird had always been troubled by one thing. Why would a perfectly normal person wear a mask? How strange. Is it strange? I think Big Brother is very handsome, don't you think? Mayo Flying Bird smiled. Suddenly, she saw Lakis standing at the entrance of the plaza and waving goodbye to the siblings. She immediately stood on her tiptoes and waved her right hand vigorously. Although Ray Minkai and Lakis had only interacted with the siblings for a short time, the young Mayo had already fallen in love with the surprisingly amiable Lakis and Ray Minkai who had saved her kite. Big brother, they're gone. Will we meet again? The car carrying Lei Minkai and Lakis slowly drove away. Mayo seemed a little reluctant to part with them. Probably. Real Flying Bird replied absent-mindedly. Although Mayo didn't recognize it, Real Flying Bird recognized that the uniform Sasaka was wearing was the military uniform used by the Ob Defense Force. Is that so? That's great. When the time comes, I want to give Big Sister a gift. Mommy said that when someone gives you a gift, you have to give them a gift in return. The little girl didn't think that deeply. She only knew that if she had the chance to meet Lakis again, she would happily drag her brother home to prepare a gift in return. Night gradually fell. Rei Minkai and Lakis returned to the embassy, changed into formal attire, and boarded the car to Sahak's house again. This was the bridge car prepared by the Scandinavian embassy for Rei Minkai and Lakis. Safety was guaranteed. Moreover, after the White Cat's inspection of State Zero, the conversation between Rei Minkai and Lakis was guaranteed not to be eavesdropped. Kai. This country isn't as neutral as it seems, Lakis said faintly as she looked at the street lights that had already lit up outside the window and the starry night sky. Are you referring to the Sahak family? Combining what he saw and heard during the day, Rei Minkai already knew what Lakis was thinking. Yes. Lakis sorted out her thoughts and continued, You're right. The assault on Gouda, and even the other 4 Gouda, and the Archangel were all built on Ob's colonial satellite. I thought that Ob was neutral on the surface, but in fact, they were colluding with Earth in the name of neutrality. But after today, I realized that there isn't only one voice inside Ob. After a pause, Lakis withdrew her gaze from the street lights outside the window and looked at Rei Minkai. Sahak, no, probably not only the Sahak family. In the country of Ob, there are leaders in different industries. I'm afraid that they won't be on the same side as the Lion of Ob, Jimmy Nara Ashar. Just like the Supreme Council. No. It's different from the Supreme Council. There, it's just a disagreement between father and Uncle Sarab. Lakis shook her head and spoke softly. As the only heir of the Klein family, even if Lakis didn't participate too much, or even interfere with Siegel Klein's affairs, she would still know some things. And here, the many families that form this neutral country of Ob seem to have their own schemes and are secretly scheming. Sahak. This family that owned the Dawn Society had a good relationship with the Eurasian Federation behind the scenes. If the Eurasian Federation or the Earth Alliance wants to take back Victoria Airport, they will probably make a request to the Sahak family. Lakis quietly listened to Rei Minkai talk about some of the matters of Ob that seemed good on the surface but was actually surging with undercurrents. Just like what I said earlier, the Sahak family isn't the only family in this country with 2 hearts. But judging from Aubrey's current situation, the only one who could stand up to the Ashar clan in public was the Sahak clan. As for the others, they can only choose to submit under the majesty of the Lion of Ob. If that Prime Minister Jimmy gets into an accident, Lakis's intuition was very sharp, and she immediately grasped the crux of the matter. Indeed. Now, the reason why Ob was able to protect himself in the war that was spreading to the human world was mostly because of the Lion of Ob's personal ability and charm. But these factors were ultimately limited, especially when the Earth Alliance army was currently in urgent need of a spaceport that led to the universe. Ob, who had the mass accelerator Bright Knight, had become an innocent man who would get into trouble because of his wealth. It wasn't hard to imagine. It wasn't hard to recall. Rei Minkai had already recalled the ending of the Lion of Ob. He led the many Ob leaders who had followed him for a long time to self-destruct along with Bright Knight, giving the Earth Alliance army a harsh slap in the face. However, it was precisely because of this that after Carrie inherited the position of Prime Minister of Aubrey, the remaining families within Aubrey who had disloyalty in the first place began to take action to make Carrie a mere figurehead. The family behind a certain Laver head, who had a marriage agreement with Carrie, plotted to completely make Carrie a figurehead, making her a caged bird in Aubrey. Is that so? Ray Minkai didn't respond, but Lakis already knew the answer from Ray Minkai's behavior. Kali Yura Ashar. Poor girl. Perhaps because she empathized with her, Lakis sighed faintly. The journey to Saha's house was not far. They just set off from the other end of the island and drove half a circle around the island before arriving at the area where Saha's house was located. Welcome, esteemed guests. Miss Mina and Master Jannar have been waiting for a long time. Please follow me, my two esteemed guests. Ray Minkai and Lakis got out of the car one after the other and walked into the huge villa under the guidance of the butler. As for the style of the villa, Ray Minkai didn't pay much attention to it. After all, the palace of the Britannia Empire was much more luxurious than this. Ray Minkai, who had lived here for a long time, was not interested in observing the buildings of a similar style. As soon as he entered, Ray Minkai saw Mina and Jannar standing at the entrance, waiting for the two of them. One had an appropriate and polite smile, while the other was expressionless, but Ray Minkai could still feel the arrogance that had not disappeared. Welcome, esteemed guests. Please. Dinner is ready. Let's enjoy the meal first. Lund Mina Sahak spoke in a loud voice of welcome and leaned forward in invitation. Ray Minkai and Lakis nodded, accepting the invitation gladly. However, the former looked left and right and realized that someone was missing. If Miss Britannia wants to find Paul Jewel and the rest, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Half an hour ago, the Dawn Society sent a notice that the new mothership modified for the recycling house has been taken offline. Right now, Mr. Paul Jewel and the rest should be on their way to the Dawn Society. Lund Mina Sahak saw Ray Minkai's gaze and took the initiative to explain. A new mothership? Was it new home? The new mothership controlled by the thinking AI of the first regulator? Ray Minkai's eyes, hidden under the mask, narrowed slightly. He had really picked the best time to do so. The new mothership was real, but such an ingenious timing. It was probably Lund Mina Sahak's doing in the dark. Is that so? If that's the case, Law will probably be very happy. After all, the recycling house's mothership was scrapped to save the Red Heretic. There was a sting in his words. The moment Ray Minkai said this, Lund Mina Sahak's cold expression suddenly changed, but he was quickly stopped by Lund Mina Sahak. Mina, father seems to have a mission for you. Why don't you go first? Mina, you? Let's go. Lund Mina Sahak did not allow Lund Mina Sahak to refuse and stopped him on the spot, forcing Lund Mina Sahak to retreat. Before leaving, Lund Mina Sahak's indignant gaze seemed to be directed fiercely at Ray Minkai, as if he wanted to tear a few holes in his body. My apologies. I've made a fool of myself in front of you. Please come with me. Lund Mina Sahak's etiquette was very good. Even if something as unpleasant as Lund Mina Sahak had happened, Lund Mina Sahak's attitude and etiquette could erase the unpleasantness. The dinner was sumptuous, but Ray Minkai and Lakis were not in the mood to enjoy the luxurious dinner in front of them. Instead, they were waiting for Lund Mina Sahak's response. Although this was not a Hongmen banquet, Lund Mina Sahak's attitude was crucial. The heir of the Sahak family slowly put down the knife and fork in his hand. He gestured for the servant to clear the table, then raised his hand again and pointed at the wine cabinet in the corner of the room. Interested in a drink? There are some things that only taste good when tasting red wine. Lakis frowned slightly and shook her head slightly. My apologies. I'm not an adult yet. As soon as these words came out, Lund Mina Sahak was stunned. Ha 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 ha. My apologies. My apologies. It's my fault. With a self-deprecating laugh, Lund Mina Sahak first expressed his apologies, then looked at Ray Minkai. Your Excellency Britannia, although Her Highness is not an adult yet, you should be able to accompany me for a drink, right? Ray Minkai looked at Lakis. The latter nodded slightly in response. Then, I'll respectfully accept your invitation. After a while, under the servant's movements, The crystal-clear goblets were slowly filled with dark red wine. Then, 2 glasses of red wine were brought to their hands by the servant. "It's a pleasure to meet these 2 esteemed guests." Lund Mina Sahak raised his glass to Ray Minkai. "Me too." With a light sip, Lund Mina Sahak's lips were stained with a bright red color, making him look particularly seductive. "Thank you for your help today, Your Excellency. If not for Your Excellency, the Dawn Society would have been troubled by the OS program for some time." Lund Mina Sahak's opening was very direct, but he did not allow for any interruptions. "I heard a piece of news from certain sources. You're the one who defeated the Desert Tiger? Haha. You do seem to be the case. I presume that Sir Bernard has already met with you?" "Indeed. I wonder if Miss Lund Mina Sahak has any advice for me? Just call me Mina. In exchange, I'll call you by your name, how about that?" Lund Mina Sahak glanced at Lakis, as if observing her reaction to how she addressed Ray Minkai. In the end, Lakis's expression did not change at all. "All right, Miss Mina. Sir Bernard only extended an invitation to me. It's not a big deal." "It's not a big deal? Haha. Kai, you're really generous." After a pause, Lund Mina Sahak changed the topic. "Sir Kai and Miss Audrey's actions here will be fully supported by the Sahak family. As a thank you gift for solving the OS program development for the Dawn Society." Chapter 581. It was nighttime. The sky was full of stars, and the scattered starlight was reflected on the calm sea, connecting the sea and the sky. It gave the humans an illusion that they were among the stars. However, such a beautiful and dreamy scene was destroyed by the sudden appearance of ripples. Woo woo woo! The sound of the engine's high-speed rotation was like a pair of scissors that cut the quiet night sky into pieces. Facing the sea breeze, Ray Minkai's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the dark night sky and look at the distant horizon, seeing the small island that had become his target. At this moment, Ray Minkai's position was already in a sea area west of Ob. As long as he moved forward a little more, he would be able to get close to the small island. The small island that hid some secrets. "Sir, in half an hour we will enter the sea area of the small island. When the time comes, we will stop the engine and land on the target island by diving." A burly man walked out of the landing ship, facing the sea breeze, and shouted at Ray Minkai, who was standing at the bow of the ship. "And I will leave everything to you." Ray Minkai did not have much experience in how to sneak into the target island. Fortunately, the Sahak family was really like what Lund Mina Sahak said, fully supporting Ray Minkai's operation this time. Not only did they give Ray Minkai an elite force that was good at sneaking into the island, but they also sent the brand new M1 Heretic that had just been adjusted offline to Ray Minkai. It had to be said that this was exactly what Ray Minkai had in mind. If that island was really the secret base of the librarian, then there must be some kind of heavy firepower in this base. For example, the Xeon that Zaft was currently using, or the heavy weapons in active service of the Earth Alliance. With this brand new M1 Heretic, Ray Minkai was more confident in defeating the enemies on this island without using the White Cat's current pitiful energy. Walla! Walla! Under the silent but rhythmic flickering of lights, the elite Aubrey soldiers who had changed into diving suits jumped into the water from the landing craft. At the same time, following them into the water were unmanned submarines developed to assist in the island's infiltration operations. 10 minutes. This was the time given by the leader of the elite troop. Although he was very confident, Ray Minkai did not dare to relax too much. Based on his memories of the librarian, Ray Minkai did not really believe in the Sahak family's ability to keep secret. Even though Lund Mina Sahak had stated many times that the elite troops she would personally send out were from the Sahak family, or even her own private army, Ray Minkai still chose to make other preparations. Returning to the landing craft, Ray Minkai saw a young man with a blue headscarf and a yellow vest circling the brand new M1 Heresy. Luo. Haven't you personally piloted the M1 many times? Ray Minkai walked down the stairs, stood beside the M1 heretic, and asked Law, who was searching around. It's you, Kai. Isn't this because this M1 is brand new? I heard that it also uses the OS program you developed? When Law heard Ray Minkai's words, he quickly waved at Ray Minkai. It's true. It's just that Director Simmons seems to have modified some things. Well, it is said that it can improve the flexibility of natural people piloting the M1. It was already expected that the OS program he gave would be modified. Ray Minkai was not too surprised. It was just that Law's reaction was somewhat unexpected. Is that so? I can also experience the OS program you develop. What is different about it? Law's expression was as dejected as a child who lost his toy, which made Ray Minkai smile. If you want to experience it, the OS program used by this M1 heretic was written by me. Really? Law was taken aback, first overjoyed, then confused. If this operation is over, won't it be returned? Law's words made Ray Minkai laugh on the spot. Ha 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 ha. Law. You underestimate the Sahak family. This M1 heretic could be said to belong to me. The lady of the Sahak family is not a stingy person. No way? Kai, you're not lying, are you? As a waste collector for a long time, Law naturally knew the value of MS. Even the brand new MS in the black market of waste collectors has always been priceless and rarely seen in 100 years. Do you think the lady of the Sahak family will be a stingy person who likes to lie? Lundmina Sahak was not that kind of stingy person. Compared with his younger brother, Lundmina Sahak had a more kingly attitude in dealing with people and was more suitable to be the new generation of leader of the country of Aub than Kari. However, Lundmina Sahak did not agree with the ideals of Nami Nara Ashar and his heir, Kajali. He had always been a bystander, coldly watching as Aub was destroyed, and reborn again under the leadership of 2 generations of Nami and Kajali. Of course, Law, who didn't know much about Lundmina Sahak, finally just let out a, "Kai, you're so lucky. It makes me jealous" sigh. In this regard, Ray Minkai just shook his head slightly. In terms of luck, Law's luck was always among the best. Ray Minkai looked up at the electronic clock on the side, and looked at Law again. Law, it's getting late. We should strike. Hearing this, Law's face suddenly became dignified. Ray Minkai's other preparation was not only the M1 heresy, but also Law, who was invited by Ray Minkai, appeared in this mission as a reinforcement. 2MS should be able to solve most of the accident. A few minutes later, Law's speedboat drove out from the landing ship Ray Minkai was on at this time and headed to the rear side, towards another landing ship parked not far away. The Red Heresy Gouda was there, waiting for the return of its master. M1 Heresy start. The moment Ray Minkai pressed the start button, the figure of the White Cat State 0 appeared from Ray Minkai's shoulder. Be careful this time. The White Cat State 0 seemed a little dignified. Is there a situation? Ray Minkai looked at the White Cat State 0, who was usually fearless, in surprise. Yes, that island is emitting an aura that makes me feel sick. It seems that something is disturbing my senses. The White Cat State 0 raised its gaze, quickly glanced in the direction of the island, and gently jumped onto the console. Minkai. If there are any accidents, don't hesitate, immediately summon State 0. Ray Minkai was slightly taken aback, but he still nodded. Okay. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. However, the infiltration team that was sent 10 minutes ago did not seem to have sent back the message of successful landing. This made the person in charge of this team feel a little embarrassed. The agreed time had passed, but the signal of successful landing had not been sent out. He was afraid that, all of a sudden, a star slowly rose from the island. The light it emitted was so bright and dazzling under the night sky. Its appearance made the person in charge even more excited. Your Excellency! The landing operation was successful. Ray Minkai and the White Cat State Zero looked at each other, and both of them nodded in unison. Good. Open the hatch. M1 Heresy attack. Under the night sky, two steel silhouettes soared into the sky, leaving trails of fire behind them. They were like shooting stars in the night sky as they charged towards the island. Woo 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 woo. Ear-piercing sirens constantly ravaged the air in the base buried deep under the island, mercilessly dragging out people who had just fallen asleep from their illusory dreams. Under the flashing red light, the people who were awakened hurriedly put on their clothes and ran quickly in the corridor, returning to their posts as quickly as possible. What happened? The person in charge of this base frowned deeply. According to common sense, although this island was close to Audubon, it was actually located in a very remote sea area. It was unlikely that a cargo ship would pass through here in a year, let alone Audubon's army. The vast Pacific Ocean was enough to accommodate any activities of this country. Therefore, the deserted island that should not have any accidents actually welcomed a shrill alarm that woke everyone up. Report. It's an attack. 5 minutes ago, a group of armed men of unknown origin suddenly landed on our island and quickly began to clear out the open and hidden sentries that we set up. Now they are fighting with the third team that we sent out. Armed men? Are they pirates? According to the person in charge's understanding of this sea area, if there were really pirates, they would probably be attacked by Audubon's fleet at the first moment. If they were not pirates, then, who were the armed men that appeared here? Suddenly, the person in charge had a flash of inspiration. Not good. Quick. Send out our MS and quickly search the nearby sea area. They are not armed men, but regular soldiers. Quick. The person in charge's thoughts were in turmoil, and he quickly issued the order to retreat. Inform all departments to organize the information as quickly as possible and prepare to retreat. Regardless of victory or defeat, this base must be abandoned immediately. Yes. The moment the M1 heretics and the Red heretics approached the island, they found the infiltration troops that had set up a temporary position on the top of the pool. As soon as the soldiers who were shaking the light sticks in their hands saw the appearance of the M1 heretics and the Red heretics, they quickly changed the movements of their hands and used the tracks left by the light sticks in the night sky to make signals that represented different meanings. Law. Let's go. Let's make a scene. As soon as he saw the light sticks shaking back and forth, Ray Minkai understood the intention of sneaking into the army. Their purpose was to consolidate this temporary position while waiting for the arrival of a new batch of reinforcements. Then, they would immediately launch an infiltration operation on the island, striving to control the island before the enemy made a fierce self-destructive resistance. For this reason, what Ray Minkai and Law had to do now was to make a scene and attract the enemy's attention. Understood. Come on. Before Law's voice fell, the Red heretic took the lead in jumping high from the temporary position and flew toward the depths of the island without fear. Sure enough, compared to the short humans who used the night to hide, the huge and conspicuous painted MS was the most conspicuous target in the night. The Red heretic just jumped high and attracted the hidden turrets hidden around the island. Under the camouflage shell that quickly opened, there were cannons that flashed with cold light. Among these cannons, there were also large-caliber Vulcan cannons mixed among them. Boom, 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 da-da-da-da-da. The sound of the cannons rolled like thunder, and the Red heretic instantly seemed to be in the middle of a death net woven by many cannons and Vulcan cannons. But Law was fearless. Hey, this is interesting. Even though the death net's barrage was indeed terrifying, the Red heretic just squatted a little, raised the shield in his left hand in front of him, and successfully blocked the attack. Although some of the cannons would slip through the net, they could not cause significant damage to the Red heretic at all. Law did not even bother to pay attention to them, because even if he took 1 or 2 shots, it did not matter. Hum. Hum. Da-da-da-da. Beams of light swept past the Red heretic and accurately hit the turrets that were locked onto the Red Heretic and launched rounds of barrage attacks, turning them into fireballs. The fire that almost formed a line swept through the forest that was shrouded in the night, turning the Gatling turrets hidden in the forest into a hornet's nest. Boom! Boom! When the artillery turrets and the Gatling turrets turned into fireballs that lit up the night sky, Ray Minkai's M1 Heretic arrived beside the Red Heretic. Law, are you okay? Oh, I'm fine. I've strengthened the Red Heretic's shield. This level of attack can't cause any damage to the shield at all. After all, he was a man with strong physical abilities. Ever since he obtained the Red Heretic, Law had been modifying it. Ray Minkai casually glanced at the shield in the Red Heretic's hand that had not been damaged at all and could not help but laugh bitterly. Indeed. Do it yourself, and you'll have plenty to eat and wear. Rumble. Suddenly the earth shook. It was as if something had awakened under the island. Da-da-da-da! Amidst the violent shaking of the earth, 3 flames tore through the darkness and rushed towards the M1 Heretics and the Red Heretic like vipers rushing out of a cave. Be careful! As soon as Ray Minkai's warning sounded, the M1 Heretics and the Red Heretic immediately jumped high and avoided the attack from the darkness. That's Xion? Amidst the flames that engulfed the forest, 3 MSs that were shrouded in darkness with only a golden edge on the wrist appeared in front of Law. No, that's not Zaf's Xion. It's Xion that has been artificially modified. Law, we're in big trouble this time. Amidst the rumbling of the earthquake, 2 ghost-like gray figures pierced through the starry sky and looked down at the forest lit up by flames. They were actually Xion that had just been equipped by Zaft. Chapter 582. The original horn-like head ornament had been removed and replaced with a pair of horns. The armor on the body was mainly painted in black. Under the night sky, the huge horns and the eerie black paint made Ray Minkai almost unable to recognize it. This was the MS that brought great pressure to the Earth Alliance. Xion. Is this a brand new creation? Or was it recycled and modified? The M1 and Red Heresy stood on the left and right, guarding against the black MS that surrounded them in a triangular formation. At the same time, in the sky, the 2 Deans that were painted in gray but not much different from the ones in Ray Minkai and Law's impression were circling back and forth. However, from the way the 2 Deans gradually expanded their circling range, the Deans that had the advantage in the air would soon discover the landing craft in the nearby sea area. Law, we're in big trouble now. Of course. Law wiped his nose and laughed. Then, the Red Heresy took a big stride forward. With a flash of cold light, the Red Heresy pulled out the special weapon named Kikuikamanji and attacked the Black Xion that was closest to the Red Heresy like a storm. The M1 Heresy that was half a step behind was naturally unwilling to fall behind. As Ray Minkai's gaze moved, the M1 Heresy's muzzle was already aimed at the Deans that were circling in the sky and would attack at any time. If he could take advantage of the opportunity when the Red Heretic had attracted the attention of the 3 pitch-black Xion and quickly get rid of the 2 Xions, the landing craft that was sending reinforcements to the island would not be in any greater danger. Therefore, the moment the green cross in front of Ray Minkai's eyes swept across the night sky, it instantly turned into an exceptionally dazzling red as it caught sight of the Deans. The trigger was pulled, and the M1 Heresy's Type 71 beam rifle instantly bloomed with a brilliance that lit up the night sky. In just a moment, from the bottom to the top, the beam that flew across the night sky brushed past the wings of the Deans that were slightly lower in altitude. Although it did not hit the Deans, it was enough to scare the Deans that had just taken a trip to the edge of life and death. Kai, that gray thing wants to run away. When the White Cat Zero saw that the frightened Dean wanted to increase the altitude, it immediately gave a warning. Ray Minkai pushed with his left hand and stepped on the pedals alternately. The M1 Heretic under his control threw the shield in the direction of the Red Heretic. At this moment the wind suddenly blew. A second before the whistling sound of the shield being thrown by the M1 heretic swept over, Law, who seemed to have sensed something, did not hesitate to control the red heretic to roll on the ground and make way for it. A shield that could throw out an M1 heretic would give a Dark Xeon a chance to land a direct critical hit. Boom! Amidst the whistling sound of the shield, the pitch-black Xeon was unable to react in time. Its head monitor was smashed by the shield on the spot. At the same time, the shield's momentum did not stop until it was embedded deeply into the pitch-black Xeon's chest. It only stopped after destroying the Xeon's engine. All of this happened in just a short moment. In the eyes of the remaining two pitch-black Xeon, the Xeon that was hit by the shield suddenly collapsed with a loud bang, without any resistance at all. Swoosh! A cold light bloomed in the night sky, bringing the attention of the two pitch-black Xeons back to reality. Don't look around. Now your opponent is me. The red heretic raised his sword and the heavy assault machine guns in the hands of the two pitch-black Xeons were broken. Boom! Boom! Two small fireballs exploded in the hands of the pitch-black Xeons. As the two pitch-black Xeons retreated, they had already pulled out their heavy swords from their waist. An MS combat battle created by the top human technology was ready to begin. On the other side, the M1 heretic who threw the shield at the red heretic did not pay attention to the results of his casual throw. Instead, after running for a distance, he stepped on the small hill in front of him that seemed to be only about 10 or 20 meters tall. He used all the thrust contained in his backpack to try to rush into the air and attack Dean, who had the air superiority in a shorter and closer distance. Buzz! Buzz! When the M1 heretic rushed into the sky, the Type 71 beam rifle constantly moved its muzzle and fired beams at the location predicted by Ray Minkai. TSK. Did he see through my movements? The Dean that was targeted by the M1 heretic quickly changed its flight path and tried its best to pull up, trying to escape the pursuit of the M1 heretic that could not fly by flying to a higher altitude. Buzz! However, just as the Dean was pulling up, a beam of light pierced through the air and accurately penetrated the back of the Dean. It melted the entire cockpit and created a huge hole. Then, a small shining sun appeared in the night sky. In less than a few minutes after the battle started, the Dean that had an overwhelming air superiority actually lost one of its Xeons. Looking at the M1 heresy that was pulled back to the ground by gravity, the remaining Deans began to waver. Ignore the MS. Search the nearby waters. Quick! As the order from the base sounded, the remaining Dean made up its mind and quickly turned around to leave. According to the thoughts of the Dean pilot and the base, as long as the Dean began to accelerate, the M1 heretic that could not fly would not be able to catch up with the Dean. Whether it was in fact or in theory, this result was expected. However, reality gave the Dean and the base a hard slap in the face. In front of them was the gradually enlarging sea, behind them was the gradually abandoned land. However, just as the Dean was about to leave the sky above the island and fly into the sky above the sea, a huge impact suddenly kicked the Dean from the sky. The Dean fell heavily into the desert below, stirring up waves of sand and dust. What's going on? In the base, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the M1 heretic, who had suddenly appeared above Dean on the screen and ruthlessly kicked him down to the beach. Under the night sky, the moment the M1 heretic's hand emitted a blazing light, it drew a straight trajectory in the night sky. From top to bottom, it pierced straight into Dean's body, who was wrapped in billowing sand and dust. The moment the particle beam soared with powerful destructive power pierced through the Dean's armor, it also sent the pilot's life to hell. The sand and dust stopped, and the huge electronic eye of the Dean also slowly dimmed until the power driving the heavy body completely disappeared. Law. I'm done here. What about you? The M1 heretic retracted the beam sword in his hand and looked at the center of the island. Ah, good. You're done here? While the M1 heretic dealt with the two deans, the red heretic with the large Kikuikamanji was engaged in a cold weapon duel with two black Zeons that were also armed with cold weapons. Although it lacked the heat unique to hot weapons, the killing intent unique to cold weapons was particularly glaring. The Kikuikamanji slashed out a cold light in the air and forced the two black Zeons to retreat. Law casually said, "Kai, if you're done, come over and help me. These two guys are a bit weird." Weird? Lei Mingkai frowned, but he still replied with a single sentence. "Yes, Law. There's a dean with a melted cockpit here on the beach. You can take it back later. Treat it as a reward for this time." "Huh? Dean?" As soon as he heard that Lei Mingkai was going to give him a dean, Law almost revealed a flaw and was caught by the black Zeons that besieged the red heretic. "Yes, Dean." It took a long time to say, but it was done quickly. During the short conversation between Lei Mingkai and Law, the M1 heretic that set off again from the beach and rushed to the center of the island had already appeared on the battlefield dominated by cold weapons. "Law, do you want another Zeon?" "What?" Lei Mingkai's words once again made Law stunned for a moment. In the next second, the M1 heretic rushed into the center of the battle from the periphery of the battlefield like lightning. He waved the beam sword in his hand straight toward the left side of the red heretic, trying to take advantage of the opportunity when another black Zeon attracted the red heretic's attention to stab at the black Zeon that attacked violently. The moment the surging beam sword stabbed the back of the black Zeon, countless sparks jumped wildly until the black Zeon was pierced by the beam sword. As a result, the scene of Dean's death reappeared on the body of the black Zeon. After the huge electronic eye flashed rapidly for a while, it fell straight to the ground as its energy source was cut off. Swish! Law swung a sword and cut off the remaining black Zeon's right arm. After kicking it away, Law looked speechlessly at the black Zeon that was pierced through the cockpit by the M1 heretic. "Kai, the dean you mentioned just now was also dealt with by you in this way?" "Yes." "Is there a problem?" Lei Mingkai nodded matter-of-factly. At the same time, the M1 heretic, under his control, once again burst out with full power to push the backpack. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the black Zeon that was kicked away by the red heretic. In the next second, a light flashed in the M1 heretic's hand, and the beam sword in his hand pierced the black Zeon again. This time, it was still the cockpit. Looking at the slowly dissipating beam sword in the M1 heretic's hand, Law's eyelids twitched wildly. He didn't expect that there would be someone who could so easily pierce through the cockpits of 3 MSs in a row. On the way, there wasn't even much entanglement. This, Law didn't know what to say for a while. "Yes. Another one, Law. This black Zeon is a new reward. I have a commission for you." "A new commission? Reward?" Law moved his gaze and looked at the M1 heretic, and then at the black Zeon that fell at its feet. He knew that this commission couldn't run away, because the reward was already in front of his eyes. This was an MS that was mostly intact except for the damaged cockpit. Where would he find such a reward? Law paused and said with some speculation, "Kai, you want to investigate the situation of these airframes?" "Yes. But I'll tell you the details later, we still have things to do." "Yes." The battle between MSs ended in a short time, but it didn't mean that the island was captured by Lei Mingkai and the others. The more critical next step was to break into the underground base and take control of the base before the enemy activated the self-destruction program. Da-da-da! When the M1 heretic and the red heretic broke into the underground base along the dark Zeon and Dean's passage, gunshots were already loud inside. Explosions and gunshots were continuous. The narrow passage was stained with blood, bullet shells were scattered all over the ground, bullet holes, and bullet marks were all over the passage. Obviously, at the same time as the battle between MSs began, there was also a more intense battle here. Boom! A loud noise, a flash of light, it was captured by two mechs known as the Heretics. Over there. Kai, do you want to go down? Law looked at the surrounding situation and couldn't help but have an indescribable feeling in his heart. As a recycler, Law has naturally experienced many tragic battlefields. It's just that it's rare for Law to witness the bloody fighting between humans. You stay here, Law. The airframe always needs someone to guard it. Ray Minkai not only understood Law's feelings, but also because of the next action, Ray Minkai didn't want to involve too many people. Okay. Leave the airframe to me. Under Law's gaze, Ray Minkai, who walked down from the M1 Heretic, quickly rushed into the passage where the explosion came from. Along the way, the tragic scene he saw made Ray Minkai frown. The shell casings and bullet marks that hadn't shrunk told Ray Minkai that the enemies in this base hadn't given up resisting. On the contrary, their resistance was gradually increasing. Suddenly, Ray Minkai stopped in his tracks. In front of him was a soldier wearing a full-body gas mask. Either he was hit by a stray bullet or something unexpected happened. The gas mask, which should have brought a strong protective power to the user, had a huge hole in it. And in this hole, there was a face that made Ray Minkai's face gradually dignified. What did you find? White Cat State Zero appeared on Ray Minkai's shoulder, and it also noticed the strangeness of Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai first shook his head, then squatted down. After removing the broken gas mask, he carefully observed the face that had turned pale due to death. Then, Ray Minkai got up again, casually found a corpse nearby that was also wearing a gas mask, and also removed the gas mask. How could it be? Exactly the same face? White Cat State Zero exclaimed as soon as it saw the same face under the gas mask. Clone? No. It's a clone. Ray Minkai casually threw away the gas mask in his hand and slightly clenched his teeth. The answer, perhaps, was already clear at this moment. The only person who could obtain the recognition of everyone around, including relatives, in the appearance of a fake, could only be the librarian who could create a clone with the same memory and personality. If there were no other accidents. Chapter 583. The gunshots were still echoing in the tunnel. The bloodiest battle between humans was still going on. However, Ray Minkai, who had tossed the tattered gas mask aside, had no intention of continuing to chase in the direction where the gunshots came from. State Zero. Let's begin. Didn't you say that there's something here that makes you feel disgusted? White Cat State Zero was silent for a while, but then jumped down from Ray Minkai's shoulder. The moment it landed, it transformed into a wild lion. However, this wild lion had been adjusted for this narrow passageway. Kai, come up quickly. It's so narrow here, I can't care about the things under my feet. The narrow space made Wild Lion Zero very uncomfortable. The moment Ray Minkai sat on it, the wild lion turned into a stream of light and rushed into another tunnel. It was only here that the aura that made State White Cat Zero feel disgusted was emitted. Quick! Quick! Evacuate everyone! The person in charge of this base did not expect that the 3 Dark Xeon and 2 Deans deployed in this base would be destroyed by an unknown enemy in such a short time. Even if he had seen the design style of Aubrey's Twilight Society from the familiar body outline of the Red Heretic, he still could not be sure that this sudden attack was launched by Aubrey. If the power of a country was used to attack this desolate and uninhabited island that even cargo ships were not willing to approach, there would definitely be clues before the attack. Especially the body that was very similar to the Red Heretic. The pilot of this body could not be casually found to have such a level of piloting skills. That was a strength that only an ace pilot could possess. Even in the human world, Zaft, who was the first to have an MS, there were not many pilots who could do that. Similar thoughts kept appearing in his mind, but the person in charge of the base did not dare to continue thinking about it. In the absence of information, making a unilateral guess was just a wild guess without any basis. Be careful! All of a sudden, A sharp cry rang out, followed by a loud boom. Boom! The 10-ton steel screen door, which was supposed to have powerful defensive capabilities and could delay the intruder's attack, was sent flying by an unknown existence. In the splashing dust, the heavy steel screen door flew out from people's sight, passed over people's heads, and finally smashed a big hole in the wall behind people, and was firmly embedded in the wall. What is that? The roar of the collision with the wall had not yet dissipated. The people who were dizzy from the roar were shocked by a huge figure standing at the door, looming in the flying dust. Roar! A beast-like roar swept over, and the sound of gunfire suddenly became louder. The soldiers in the base didn't know what kind of monster had sent the heavy steel gate flying, but they knew that if they didn't get rid of this monster, they would be the ones to die in the end. Da-da-da-da! Gunshots rang out as the bullets tore through the smoke and dust in a frenzy, heading straight for the figure of the huge beast hidden behind the smoke and dust. However, it was the sound of bullets bouncing off after hitting the steel. Monster! It's a monster! After emptying a magazine of bullets, the soldiers who didn't see any damage to the enemy retreated in fear. However, these soldiers were still not controlled by fear. They turned around and ran. Instead, they forced themselves to reload the weapons in their hands. Roar! The beast's roar rang out again, but this time, it was an announcement of death. In the sound of gunfire, the steel body flashing with cold light leaped up high and rushed into the crowd like a meteor. In an instant, a blood-colored storm swept through the underground space. Monster! He raised his pistol with trembling hands and kept pulling the trigger, shooting bullets at the steel beast that killed the surrounding soldiers in a few ups and downs. This was an attack that was destined to be futile. However, driven by the instinct to survive, whether it was humans or beasts, they would all do the same thing in the face of death. It didn't matter if these actions would allow them to escape. Roar! In the midst of the terrifying roar, the person in charge of the base finally saw the true appearance of the monster that suddenly appeared in front of him. A huge head. His mane was made of steel and looked majestic, but it was also extremely sharp. And a pair of cold eyes that looked at humans as if they were nothing. It was a steel lion whose entire body was made of an unknown metal. Bang! Dang! The last bullet in the pistol was shot by the person in charge of the base, but under his gaze, it was rebounded by the steel lion's armor and plunged into the broken ceiling above his head. Monster! The person in charge of the base still wanted to struggle to reload the magazine, but the steel lion raised its right claw and pressed him to the ground, unable to move at all. Who are you? Who is the person in charge of this base? Under the glowing claws, the person in charge of the base who couldn't move saw a pair of black boots. You? Who are you? The person in charge of the base struggled desperately. Immediately after, a sigh sounded, and a huge force, like the weight of Mount Tai, completely sent the person in charge of the base to the netherworld. Didn't you want to ask for information about this place? The wild lion raised its claws and looked at Ray Minkai. No. There's no need. The owner of this base might already be clear. If it's them, I'm afraid I won't be able to get any information. Then, there's only the last place left. Kai, we have to hurry. That girl's troops are already nearby. Above the scarlet that gradually occupied this underground space, was the back of the wild lion rushing into the depths of the base. Darkness. It was that terrifying darkness. She didn't know that she would be born in this world. By the time she gained self-awareness, she was already sitting on a chair surrounded by many unknown equipment. She was being pointed at by many people in white coats, who looked at her wantonly and said things that she did not understand. Who are they? She instinctively thought of such a question, and she followed her instincts to cast an inquiring gaze at the people around her, but she was frightened away by pairs of cold, even disgusted eyes. Under the gaze of these eyes, she was like a puppet being controlled to move back and forth between the many equipment. Sit down, lie down, who was she? Where was this place? And those people, who were they? As long as these questions were asked, there might be an answer. However, every time she saw those white coats, those pairs of cold eyes filled with disgust block the questions she wanted to ask again and again. Mental state is good. It's just that the growth rate is lower than expected. Is the biological cell growth not stimulated enough? It's possible. One day, as usual, sitting on a chair surrounded by many equipment, she suddenly heard this conversation that she didn't understand, and then it was hell. Pain, the pain of tearing the body apart, the storm of pain that swept through the brain, and the screams that begged but couldn't get mercy, became her new memory. A brand new but incomparably painful memory. I can't take it anymore. The growth index of this test subject is far from the requirements of Miss E. Abandon it. In the midst of the pain, she seemed to hear the words that determined her fate. It's too early to abandon it now. Although the growth index of this test subject is far lower than the other test subjects, the other indicators are in the front. A rebuttal sounded. She tried hard to open her eyes and look at the direction of the argument. So what? The test subjects that Miss E want are test subjects that are roughly the same age as the target. Other than that, the requirements for us won't be too high. But it's very rare to see a test subject with such good parameters. We can send out the test subjects that meet the requirements of Miss E. We can keep them and continue the research. Silence followed, leaving only the pain of tearing her body to accompany her. Until an unknown amount of time passed. Just as she was about to faint, the sound rang out again. All right, keep this test subject. The rest of the test subjects will be destroyed when they meet the requirements of Miss E. What we need are warriors, not a girl who bewitches people. When she woke up again, she had already been sent back to the same narrow room surrounded by iron plates. Time passed bit by bit. Other than the food that was delivered on time, she did not see the group of people in white coats again. Da-da-da-da. During the long wait, a hurried sound with a trace of fear tore through the air above the iron cage that imprisoned her. She did not know what the sound was. The only thing she knew was the screams from outside, the panicked cries, and the heavy sounds that rose and fell one after another. Boom! Boom! A heavy sound rang out, and it kept approaching the small iron cage. At this moment, she could only cower in the corner of this room that was surrounded by iron plates. Facing this unfamiliar yet terrifying heavy sound, she could only cower in the corner of this room. She looked at the iron door that had not been opened for a long time with a gaze that seemed to be filled with fear and hope. Creak! An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out. It was the iron door. Something was doing something to the iron door. Boom! Under her gaze, after the ear-piercing sound of friction, the iron door fell down. In the dust raised by the heavy iron door falling to the ground, a pair of black boots slowly stepped into the room that had imprisoned her for a long time. She, who was cowering in the corner of the room, subconsciously looked up along the pair of black boots. She saw a mask. It was a white mask. You're safe now. Come home with me. Perhaps, in her heart, he had already become a ray of light that illuminated the darkness. The darkness was constantly tumbling. The curses that once resounded in her ears were like rolling thunder that constantly attacked Kira's hearing. Damn adjuster! Go to hell! Why is the adjuster smarter? Stronger? Why? The adjuster is a devil that destroys the world. The adjuster is evil, an existence that must be erased. The curses rang again and again. The curses that once hovered back and forth in Kira's ears were like ghosts that did not leave for a long time. At the same time, in the darkness, the faces that flickered with disgust, hatred, and even the urge to kill Kira on the spot appeared one after another when he was under house arrest in the Earth United headquarters. Why? This question had long appeared in Kira's mind, but she could not get the answer. This was because Kira, who had once asked this question, had been treated horribly. Although the other party was very apprehensive about injuring Kira's hands, it didn't mean that they didn't have other methods to teach Kira a lesson. They wanted Kira Yamato, the regulator, to clearly understand his situation and his self-awareness as a regulator. When the painful and terrible memory of the past emerged from the darkness, Kira suddenly felt that the heart-wrenching pain did not leave at all. Instead, it took root, sprouted, and grew deeply in her body until Kira was ruled by this pain. No. Why? Why do you treat me like this? In the frenzy of pain, Kira, who was struggling bitterly, looked at the scenes of being maliciously treated in the darkness, the faces that were occupied by hatred. No. Kira suddenly opened his eyes amidst the screams, but what he saw was a clean and wide ceiling. And the place he was in was not what he saw before, the scenes of being maliciously treated in the past. Instead, it was a bright and spacious room surrounded by transparent glass on all sides and an iron ceiling. This is weak. Powerless. When he realized that he was not in the dark space that made him feel fear, Kira clearly felt how weak and powerless his body, which used to be far stronger than his peers, was at this moment. The weakness of his body even caused Kira's agile thinking to appear a little sluggish. Harrow! At this moment, a strange electronic voice came from outside. Kira moved his gaze from the ceiling with difficulty and looked outside the door. A round, red ball was bouncing out of the bushes at the side, bouncing all the way here. At the same time, this red ball was still constantly emitting that strange electronic voice. Harrow! Allah! Harrow, you can't disturb the patient. You have to be quiet. That was a voice that sounded like the sound of nature. Hearing this voice, Kira subconsciously moved his gaze and looked behind the voice, but accidentally affected the wound on his body. In an instant, Kira's face turned pale. Be careful. You can't move around now. A fragrance assaulted his nostrils. Under the fluttering pink hair was a pure and delicate face. That beautiful face and the delicate fragrance that made one feel at ease made Kira subconsciously ask, "Who are you?" After gently placing a pillow for Kira so that Kira could lean against the headboard comfortably, the girl smiled gently. I'm Lax Klein. Nice to meet you. Chapter 584. The first rays of dawn approached quietly, scattering the light from the sun on the surface of the sea, as well as expelling the darkness of the past. Under the gradually brightening sky, Lakis sat quietly on a chair, facing the morning breeze that blew in from the window. She lowered her head and looked at the little face that had fallen into a deep sleep. That pink, messy hair that resembled a bird's nest. That haggard, thin, and frail little face. It was almost identical to the face that Lakis had seen countless times in the mirror. Yes, that was her own face when she was 12 years old. Lakis' gaze gradually wavered. She subconsciously reached out her right hand, attempting to touch the face that was once so familiar, yet so real. But before she could touch the haggard little face, she was startled by a knock on the door. It's me, Kai. Audrey, are you still awake? Lakis' gaze wavered a few times, but she still slowly retracted her hand, stood up, and opened the door for Rei Minkai. I'm still awake. Kai, you haven't rested yet? I heard from Luo that the two of you seem to have gone through a battle. Lakis looked at Rei Minkai, who had a hint of fatigue on his face, and could not help but ask. Rei Minkai shook his head slightly and glanced at Lakis, who also had a tired look. No. That's not important. When I was training in the military academy, this was just a small matter. But I'm a little worried about you. Me? Lakis was stunned for a moment, but she immediately understood. Are you afraid that I'll be affected? Before Rei Minkai could answer, Lakis continued. Actually, when we were in Scandinavia, I suspected that you were hiding something from me. Is this what you're hiding from me? Lakis' intuition was undoubtedly sharp. Yes and no. Ray Minkai did not deny it, but he did not admit it either. I'm just worried about you. Worried about me? When Lakis heard Ray Minkai's words, she immediately revealed a helpless, almost bitter smile. Yes. No matter who it is, when they learn that multiple clones of themselves have been cloned without their knowledge, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as a scream, right? But you looked at her calmly and accepted her. After Ray Minkai personally sent her back to her and confessed some things, Lakis calmly accepted her, and gave up her room to let her rest. Lakis opened her mouth, but she didn't know how to explain the situation. I just don't want her to sleep in the living room like this. Moreover, judging from the wounds on her body, she must have been tortured, right? Ray Minkai's gaze went past Lux and landed on the bed that was gradually being bathed in the morning light. She is just one of the many clones. Other than her, there was only one Ku, no, the imprinted man, who was still alive. The rest had probably been destroyed. When we attacked that island, the only thing we could save was her and some information. Ray Minkai retracted his gaze from the bed and made eye contact with Lakis. Among the information, I found traces of another her being sent to plant. Another her? Is the truth unfolding just like that? Lakis didn't expect that the Silver Wind incident was actually planned by another her, and the mastermind behind the creation of her. Then, my name, my identity, my family, and my father were all taken by another me? As Lakis's voice was filled with grief and indignation, light flowed, and her pink hair fluttered in the wind at the moment the sun rose from the east. The true face of Lakis Klein was gradually occupied by grief and indignation. Her pure and flawless eyes were also occupied by a light that was unclear whether it was hatred or not. Just like that, without my knowledge, I was cloned and made into countless copies of myself. Then they took my name, my voice, my identity, my family? Is my father dead? Ray Minkai was speechless under Lakis's grief and indignation. He didn't know what to say or how to comfort her. In the course of history, Lakis Klein was bound to meet the girl who disguised herself as her through superb plastic surgery. But at that time, Lakis Klein had already experienced the destruction of her family due to her father's death. She was the Lakis Klein who had grown up after the First Great War. Now, the Lakis Klein standing in front of him was a girl who hadn't experienced most of the events in the original course of history. Furthermore, the early arrival of her was a heavy blow to this Lakis Klein who had yet to grow up. Ray Minkai's silence made Lakis smile sadly. As her skirt fluttered, Lakis took a few steps back and returned to the bedside. She lowered her head to look at the sleeping her. I don't know what to do. Lakis gradually lowered her body and slowly reached out her hand to touch the thin and frail face that was almost identical to hers. She's probably Lux Klein. Looking at this face that I've seen countless times in the mirror, I can't help but have this thought. No. Ray Minkai's footsteps gradually sounded. He came to Lux's side and lowered his gaze to look at Lux's face that was almost identical to her. I know. The real Lakis Klein isn't in plant, but here, beside me, in front of me. With that said, Ray Minkai looked at her thin face, then looked up at the sky that was about to be occupied by light, and looked at the sky where the funnel-shaped colonial satellite that was considered ominous by the Earth Alliance was located. She and the her in plant are just clones of Lakis Klein. No. Lakis shook her head. They aren't clones. Lakis put down her hand, turned back to look at Ray Minkai, and smiled gently. They aren't clones, nor are they anyone's props. They're just a life that was unlucky enough to be born in this world. That's all. Lakis. Lakis' words shocked Ray Minkai. He never thought that Lux would say something like that. With these words, Ray Minkai had already guessed how Lakis would treat her, as well as the her in the sky who had taken the name Lakis Klein. Let me bring her back. Lakis composed herself, stood up, looked at Ray Minkai, and softly made this request. Aren't you afraid of causing unnecessary trouble? The appearance of her had already made Lund Mina Sahak suspicious. Ray Minkai had reason to believe that the special forces that participated in the attack on the island would definitely report to Lund Mina Sahak after the mission ended. No, that won't happen. I believe that Lund Mina Sahak will make the right choice. Moreover, Lakis' gaze once again fell on the thin and frail face. Ray Minkai knew what she meant very well. At the end of the attack on the island, the special forces had indeed brought back some information and evidence. Under the influence of the information and evidence, Lund Mina Sahak would probably fall into a state of paranoia. Just imagine. Unknowingly, the people around her were secretly swapped out by an imprint controlled by an unknown faction. Even she herself could be swapped out and replaced with someone who knew nothing about the imprint and still believed herself to be the true self. What kind of terrifying scene would that be? Lakis. That's her name. As the morning sun shone on that thin face, Lux gently caressed her and softly gave her a name that belonged to her. Welcome, sir. My sister. Harrow. 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 The familiar voice came from afar. Kira, who had yet to get out of bed, knew that this was the signal that the noisy Harrow was about to arrive. Moreover, accompanying the noisy Harrow was a young girl who looked like an angel descending to the mortal world. Her name was Lakis Klein, a young girl with a voice like the sound of nature. Every time she softly sang, Kira would always feel as if she had come to a pure, undisturbed, and harmless heaven. She was deeply captivated by her voice. Lakis Klein. She was a beautiful and pure angel. It was just that she had a fiancé. And that fiancé was actually a friend that Kira had met when they were young and then separated. After a long period of time, they met again by chance. Aslan Sarah. Under this relationship, Kira hesitated and shrank back. But fortunately, Kira was still in a heavily injured state. That cowering appearance only made the angel-like young girl misunderstand that it was because she was afraid of pulling on her wound. This misunderstanding made Kira heave a sigh of relief, but also made Kira's heart gradually fill with a pent-up anger that was difficult to relieve. You're awake, Kira. Come. This is today's breakfast. When she pushed a small dining cart and appeared from the side path, she looked at Kira, who was already able to sit alone on the bed, in pleasant surprise. Thank you, Miss Lakis. Kira slightly raised her gaze and glanced at her pleasantly surprised face. Then, she quickly lowered her gaze, afraid that the angel-like young girl in front of her would see through her. That's not right, Kira. My name is Lakis Klein. I'm not some Miss Lakis. You can just call me by my name. She pushed the dining cart to the side of the bed and said somewhat angrily. At the same time, the Herods, who had been following her movements, began to clamor even louder. Harrow, apologize. Harrow, apologize. Perhaps it was because she was afraid that she would be angered. Or perhaps the noisy Harrow scared Kira. Kira hurriedly lowered her head and wanted to apologize. But unexpectedly, due to her sudden movement, she accidentally lost her balance and fell straight to the floor. Aya, be careful. The floor was right in front of her, but Kira, who couldn't exert much strength due to her injuries, was about to fall heavily to the ground when she was saved by a gentle embrace. Aya, be careful. Kira, your injuries haven't healed yet. Are you hurt anywhere? The fragrance that gradually calmed Kira's impetuous heart. The voice that gradually calmed Kira, who fell into a dilemma due to her identity, became Kira's comfort at this moment. Thank you. I'm fine. Lakis, can you help me back to the bed? Kira seemed to be trying hard to calm her heart. After taking a few deep breaths, she said in a seemingly calm manner, Okay. Please be more careful. Please tell me immediately if you feel uncomfortable anywhere. I'll get the doctor to come right away. She gently helped Kira back to the bed and gently smoothed the messy quilt for her. Looking at her gentle and moving appearance, Kira gradually became a little dazed. But Kira forced herself to stay awake. Right. What's breakfast today? I'm a little hungry. Allah. Are you hungry? Kira. It just so happens that Miranda personally made some snacks in the morning. You can try. Looking at the girl who took out the dazzling snacks from the dining cart as if she was presenting a treasure, a gentle smile gradually appeared on Kira's face. However, this scene was seen by someone standing in the villa next to them. Test subject LH033's movement data is normal. It basically matches the gene provider's original life path, movement path, and even the fluctuations of her thoughts are almost the same. At the same time, in the gene provider's field of expertise, she also displayed the same high level of talent. In yesterday's experimental performance, the 853 audience members present did not discover any abnormalities. They were all mesmerized by the singing of test subject LH033. Combining the results of many days of observation data, LH033 has already reached the standard required by mice, and even slightly surpassed the gene provider in the field of singing. Mia stood by the window and looked down at the room that was made of high-strength transparent glass on all four sides as she listened to the continuous data reports and the results of various observations. The man and woman inside were so harmonious, so friendly. But it was also because of this that Mia's hand on the window gradually tightened. So, when Aslan was not paying attention, you betrayed Aslan like this. Lakis Klein. Under the gaze of the experimenters around her, the edge of the window frame made of ironwood was forcibly crushed by Mia. The observation ends here. Let LH033 begin the plan. From now on, her name is Lakis Klein. Chapter 585. This was already the 7th day since the Scandinavian diplomatic group arrived in Ob. During these 7 days, it was inevitable that the people of Abush would become interested in this country that was also in a neutral position. As a result, most of the attention from the outside world was attracted by the Scandinavian diplomatic team. From the official media or from the private media. In this week, they continuously reported on all kinds of news from Scandinavia, allowing most of the people of Ob to have a rough understanding of this country. However, this was only limited to the people. At the level of Ob's leader, there were other thoughts. Zasaka. How are the two guests doing recently? Rumi stood by the window, looking at the lawn below. A banquet in the park was being held there for the diplomatic group. The one in charge of hosting the banquet was none other than Rumi's daughter, Karjali Yura Ashar. Although Karjali was usually carefree and did not have the demeanor of a lady from a prestigious family, at today's banquet, she still managed to achieve the lowest standard of a lady from a prestigious family. This also made Rumi secretly relieved. Zasaka, who stood behind Rumi, naturally felt Rumi's helplessness towards his daughter, but he did not say anything and did not focus on it. Instead, he slightly lowered his head and answered Rumi's question. Sir Kevin and Miss Audrey are still staying in the embassy and rarely go out. Is that so? It seems that a few nights ago, at the banquet hosted by Sahak's eldest daughter, something did happen. No matter if it is our guests or Sahak's eldest daughter, they seem to have fallen into a busy state that we cannot understand. In the eyes of others, under Rumi's leadership, Ob was a country where everyone was of one mind. But in reality, Rumi knew that at least among the many representatives of Ob, there were at least people who had conflicting ideals with him. For example, Sahak family. The corner of Zasaka's mouth twitched. Without thinking, he spoke of the findings of the intelligence personnel he sent out recently. Sir Rumi. In a certain sea area west of Ob, a battle that we did not discover destroyed half of a deserted island. Oh? West of Ob? Rumi narrowed his eyes slightly and then nodded. Let's stop here. That was merely a battle to exterminate pirate. Zasaka. After the banquet ended, An invitation was sent out separately. In my own name, I would like to invite Her Excellency Kai Brittany and Miss Audrey Summers to our family dinner. Sasaka was taken aback, but he still replied, "Yes, I'll do it right now." As Sasaka left, Tammy looked at the park and Carrie, who was hosting the banquet, and sighed inwardly. The invitation sent out in Himi's name was quickly delivered to Rei Minkai and Lakis under Sasaka's personal efforts. At this moment, it had been almost 4 days since Rei Minkai and Lakis had left the embassy. "Long time no see, Sasaka. This is..." Rei Minkai raised the red invitation card in his hand and looked at Sasaka. "This is an invitation sent by Lord Simi in his own name. You can accept it or not according to your own opinions," Sasaka said expressionlessly. This was not a problem with Sasaka's attitude. However, this Mengnan always had this cold look on his face. "Is that so?" Rei Minkai looked at Lakis to see what she thought. "We will be there on time. Thank you very much for Prime Minister Simi's invitation." Lakis did not hesitate and immediately accepted the invitation. Then, Sasaka left the embassy with the answer that Rei Minkai and Lakis were going to be there. Rei Minkai and Lakis stood on the balcony for a long time as they watched Sasaka leave, watching the cars passing by. "It seems like Prime Minister Simi has discovered Klaya's existence." Lakis looked at the cars that disappeared at the end of the road and sighed faintly. Perhaps this was inevitable. Even if the Sahak family did not get along with Simi, he was still the prime minister of a country. Even if it was a battle within the country's borders, the military loyal to Simi would still discover some clues. After all, it was not a small skirmish between groups of soldiers, but a battle between as many as 7 MS fighters. That kind of commotion was not something that could be easily concealed. Moreover, as one of the parties involved in the battle, the Sahak family might not have the intention to hide anything. Prime Minister Simi's target might not be Klaya. To this country, Klaya's existence is just a civilian with a tragic experience. Rei Minkai combined his memories of Simi Nala Ashar with what he had seen and heard during this period of time, and came to a conclusion. It's not Klaya? Then, could it be Earth United? Ever since she came into contact with Lund Mina Sahak, Lakis knew that this country that adhered to the official neutral ideology on the surface was not united internally. Moreover, the seemingly beautiful concept of neutrality was not as beautiful as ordinary people imagined. Even in this country that claimed to be able to create a beautiful environment for adjusters and naturals to live and work together, adjusters still lived cautiously, afraid of being discovered by others. Of course, this was under the condition that they deliberately hid their identities as adjusters. If those people openly revealed their identities as regulators, they would probably have a different appearance. Maybe so. After all, the importance of Victoria Airport to Earth United is equivalent to the importance of Bright Night to Aubrey. If Earth United can recapture Victoria Airport, it'll be fine. In view of the situation where Earth United was unilaterally suppressed under the ground by Zaft, the Earth United headquarters in Earth was naturally anxious to increase their forces on the space front. And the only ones who could achieve this were Victoria Airport in Zaft's hands and Aubrey's Bright Night Mass Accelerator. Zaft, who was well aware of this, naturally would not allow Earth United to recapture Victoria Airport so easily. Therefore, with Zaft guarding Victoria Airport to the death, the Earth Alliance naturally set their sights on Aubrey's Bright Night. In the original work, this was also the reason why Aubrey detonated Bright Night on the eve of Earth United's attack. Victoria Airport. Lakis pondered for a moment and suddenly raised her head to look at Rei Minkai. "Kai, do you think the battle at Victoria Airport will start in advance?" Rei Minkai thought for a moment and then shook his head. "I don't know. Whether it's in advance or step by step, the outcome of the battle for Victoria Airport will have a profound impact on Aubrey's future until the end of this war that will burn human society." After some discussion, Lakis no longer persisted on this question. No matter what, Jimmy's personal invitation to the two before the Scandinavian diplomatic team left already meant something. Next, it was time for the two to meet Jimmy. Sahak's house. Lund-Mina Sahak sat on the edge of the balcony, quietly watching the crescent moon rise from the sea level as usual. This might be a rare free moment for her in the past few days. Ever since the battle on the deserted island, the information brought back by the special forces she sent out shocked this specially appointed successor of the Sahak family. Cloning people was not a new thing in today's world. What shocked Lund-Mina Sahak was that this mysterious organization could not only clone a specific person, but also perfectly clone the target's memories, knowledge, skills, and other key factors that could prove their identity. In other words, if this mysterious organization wanted to, all the leaders of today's world could be replaced with their clones overnight, no photocopies, and have the possibility of ruling the world. Of course, this was not only denied by Ray Minkai, but also by Lund-Mina Sahak herself. If this mysterious organization could really do this, this world might not be so deceitful. Thinking of this, Lund-Mina Sahak suddenly felt that her idea was laughable. Mississippi Master Jinar is back. At this moment, there was a knock on the door and the butler's report. Come in. Lund-Mina Sahak did not get up and only responded lazily. The door opened and Lund-Jinar Sahak's somewhat impatient face appeared in front of Lund-Mina Sahak. Mina, you're looking for me? Lund-Mina Sahak nodded slightly, then pointed to a document on the table beside him. That's the report after the battle on the deserted island. Take a look. Lund-Jinar Sahak didn't suspect anything. He walked to the table and picked up the document, flipping through it. Unbeknownst to him, while he was flipping through the documents, the butler guarding the door quietly closed the door at Lund-Mina Sahak's signal, leaving only the siblings in the room. After that, Lund-Mina Sahak quietly waited for her brother to finish reading the document. The document contained the preliminary results of the investigation carried out by the special forces after combining what they had seen and heard on the island with the information they had brought back with them, and at the behest of Lund-Mina Sahak, the investigation was carried out in secret. Although it was only preliminary results, in Lund-Mina Sahak's eyes, this document was undoubtedly the result. Mina, could there be a mysterious chess piece within our ranks? Lund-Mina Sahak read quickly. It did not take long for him to finish reading the document and come to a conclusion. Very likely. Mina. Lund-Mina Sahak's voice was cold. So cold that Lund-Mina Sahak, who had lived with her for a long time, could not help but reveal a hint of surprise. Then, do you have a target? And why would you believe a document like this? Just because of that little girl? He had learned of Klaya's existence from Lund-Mina Sahak. Lund-Mina Sahak had never thought much of Klaya from the start. He had only thought of her as a clone born out of a conspiracy. Nothing more. That little girl is just a link in the chain of evidence. Mina. And, obviously, Lund-Mina Sahak did not approve of the document in his hand. And I've already sent people to search for any suspicious target. Of course, it's only limited to members of the Sahak family. As for the other families, especially the members of House Ashar, I have no interest. House Sahak has no interest either. Then, you want me to be in charge of this operation? Seeing that his sister's attitude was very clear, Lund-Mina Sahak did not question her. Instead, using the usual method of communication between siblings, Lund-Mina Sahak took the initiative to request to be in charge of this operation. How rare. Mina. Although we are brother and sister, there is a clear division of labor between us. Today, why are you so interested in interfering with my affairs? Lund-Mina Sahak was stunned and almost did not react. No. Isn't this because? Before Lund-Mina Sahak could finish his explanation, Lund-Mina Sahak suddenly laughed. Forget it. I can leave this matter to you to handle. After all, Victoria hasn't started yet. Good. Then leave this mission to me. Mina. Lund-Mina Sahak nodded. Then, as if she was talking to her brother in the past, she casually reminded him. Mina. According to our intelligence, although the mysterious organization can create clones with the same memories, abilities, and knowledge as the original, there is a fatal flaw. Flaw? What flaw? The corners of Lund Mina Sahak's mouth curled up slightly and he continued. Based on the information we have obtained, if the mysterious organization is targeting a natural person, the clones as a whole shouldn't have many flaws. Natural people? Lund Mina Sahak frowned slightly. Natural people's genes were natural, full of random, unstable, and uncontrollable factors. Therefore, if there were any problems during the cloning process, it could be understood and adjusted again. If, suddenly, Lund Mina Sahak's eyes widened and he looked at Lund Mina Sahak. The dark muzzle of a gun. A dark muzzle was pointed at him. It was pointed at his head. If the target of the imprinting is the adjuster, then the gene chain of the adjuster that has been artificially adjusted will show a trace of instability. This trace of instability will become more and more out of control as the cloning process increases. In the end, the cloned person will fall into madness. Mina. You! Lund Mina Sahak couldn't believe what he was seeing. His own sister was pointing a gun at him. Mina. Within our Sahak family, all suspicious targets, with the exception of a certain person, have been eliminated. A certain person? A certain person. Not me. Mina. Yes. Maybe not you. But, Mina. Why were we born? Why do we exist in this world? Lund Mina Sahak didn't let his brother answer, but continued to answer his own question. We exist to build Ob, to bring Ob to a more glorious future. Therefore, we don't need to have all the negative emotions of humans. For example, anger, jealousy, hatred. You, Lund Mina Sahak. After the collapse of Heliopolis, Lund Mina Sahak, who should have been piloting the Golden Heresy back, unexpectedly lost contact with the Dawn Society in Ob for as long as 18 hours. Why? Lund Mina Sahak's voice was cold, as if she was facing a stranger. In reality, she might be facing a stranger. Lund Mina Sahak was about to answer, but was once again interrupted by Lund Mina Sahak. Just because you discovered that the red and blue heresy was taken away by Ro Jalai of the Recycling House and Song Yunshio of the Giant Serpent's Tail, you cut off contact with the Dawn Society in Ob? Lund Mina Sahak's voice grew colder as he laughed coldly. I didn't expect my stupid brother to make up such a clumsy lie. Mina. You. I am the heir of the Sahak family. Lund Mina Sahak, do you want to kill me and inherit the entire Sahak family? With a black gun pointed at him and Lund Mina Sahak repeatedly cutting him off, Lund Jaina Sahak flew into a rage. His furious expression made Lund Mina Sahak's cold smile deepen. Didn't I just say it? We were specially created by humans. From the very beginning, we don't need to have the negative emotions of humans. Mina. The more the imprint is duplicated, the more unstable the genetic chain duplicated from the original will be. The imprint whose genetic chain gradually collapses will be dominated by many negative emotions until the moment of complete collapse. No. I am the regulator. Not some imprint. Mina. This is your scheme. Lund Janar Sahak leaped forward, trying to subdue Lund Mina Sahak. However, Lund Mina Sahak was prepared for this. He turned around and tripped Lund Janar Sahak. Lund Janar Sahak fell to the ground. Look at you now. I'm afraid you've already lost the purpose and meaning of our birth. Let's meet again on the road to hell. My stupid brother Lund Mina Sahak. Bang! The Sahak family under the night sky was alarmed by the gunshot. Before the panicked servants could react, they were calmed down by the butler's men. Miss, the house has quieted down. The butler who walked back into the room didn't look at Lund Mina Sahak lying in a pool of blood. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the girl standing beside the corpse on the balcony. Take him away. Send him to a place isolated from the world. Yes. I'll let the young master have a good rest. Also, if the young master comes back. Lundmina Sahak raised his right hand and handed the gun to the butler. You should know what to do. Yes, miss, no, master. Chapter 586. The butler and maidservants stood on both sides of the dining hall with their eyes closed. They stood there like statues, waiting for their master's new orders. As the butler who had such standardized actions and performed perfectly, the master of the maidservants, Momi slowly put down the cutlery in her hand and looked up at the distinguished guest of the Asha family tonight. I wonder if tonight's dinner is to your liking? Hearing that, Lakis put down her cutlery and revealed an appropriate smile. Tonight's dinner is great. Don't you think so? Kai. Ray Minkai, who was sitting beside Lakis, laughed heartily before shaking his head. Audrey, you're making things difficult for me. To me, the food on this table is no different from the food outside. It's just food to fill my stomach. Ha 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 ha. Sir Kai, you sure are humorous. Ray Minkai's words didn't embarrass Hammy. On the contrary, he laughed heartily. That's right. To us humans, food is just to fill our stomachs. However, with the development of society and the increase of productivity, humans who could fill their stomachs began to pursue new things, new taste. As he spoke, Hammy raised his finger and pointed at the dazzling array of food on the table. Normally, it would be enough to fill the stomachs of 10 people, but now it was specially prepared for Ray Minkai and Lakis. Therefore, driven by this desire, humans who grasped more and more resources and productivity began their endless pursuit. The moment Hammy said that, Ray Minkai and Lakis secretly exchanged glances. It seemed like the theme of tonight's dinner was about to begin. Ray Minkai shifted his gaze and looked at the seat that should have been occupied, but was now empty. Perhaps, for tonight's dinner, Hammy even forbade his daughter, Carrie, from making an appearance. Yes. More fragrant, sweeter, more exciting, and more choices are the most direct sensations that humans pursue when it comes to food. However, under this pursuit, humans are able to obtain the drive to develop more productivity and more new continent. Lakis continued Hammy's words. Hammy glanced at the white mask on Ray Minkai's face before looking at Lakis. Yes. Miss Audrey was right. It is precisely because of this pursuit that humans can constantly pursue more fragrant and sweeter food under the guarantee of developing new productivity and discovering new continents. However, this seemingly endless pursuit of humanity has planted hidden dangers in the future that are enough to destroy themselves. At this moment, Ray Minkai and Lakis understood the meaning behind Hammy's words. However, Ray Minkai and Lakis weren't too interested in Tommy's thoughts that were hidden deep inside. Before that, continue to increase productivity until it's enough to eliminate the hidden dangers. This might be a solution, right? Prime Minister Jimmy. Lux chuckled. Chimi couldn't see the depth of that pair of smiling eyes, nor could she see the scenery behind that smile. Really? Immediately, Mimi revealed a smile. I'm probably worrying too much. Now, humans had already set foot in the universe. Under the vast sea of stars, there will always be materials that can be used by us humans for a long time, right? Exactly. Ray Minkai picked up his wine glass and raised it to Hammy. Prime Minister Jimmy. Let's toast to the future of humanity. Lakis smiled sweetly and raised her wine glass as well. To the future of humanity. Cheers. Hammy's eyes flickered slightly, but the smile on his face deepened. Yes. Let's toast to the future of humanity. Cheers. Clang. When the 3 glasses clinked together, it also represented the end of the banquet. After dinner, Ray Minkai and Lakis tactfully rejected Prime Minister Aubrey's invitation to stay with the reason that Clea still needed to be taken care of. Watching the car slowly drive out of the Prime Minister's residence, Hammy sighed inwardly. During the banquet just now, Hammy's conversation about food wasn't a casual one. There was a certain deep meaning behind it. If Lei Mingkai and Lakis had given a different answer back then, Hammy would probably have extended an olive branch to Lei Mingkai and Lakis without hesitation, inviting them to join the third faction that insisted on maintaining its neutrality and not participating in any meaningless wars, much less persecuting any side. But it was just that the two of them had very sharp instincts in this regard. Hammy knew that while he was making a fuss, Lei Mingkai and Lakis had already made corresponding countermeasures to deal with his invitation. In fact, it could be coercion. However, Hammy was unable to do something as unsightly as coercion. This didn't just concern Hammy Nara Asha's personal reputation, but also Aubrey's entire country's image. The daughter of the Sahak family is really lucky. Tomorrow was the day that the Scandinavian diplomatic group would leave Aubrey. After leaving the Prime Minister's residence, the car carrying Lei Mingkai and Lakis slowly drove onto the island's highway and drove along the coast toward the Scandinavian embassy. Looking at the moonlight and starry sea outside the window, Lakis couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Just now, when Hammy extended the invitation, Lakis was indeed tempted. If she could obtain the help of Aubrey, who had the most say in the third camp and was the country's most powerful person, Lakis's future would probably be smoother. However, as the price for a smoother path, Lakis would inevitably have to pay a price. For example, she would have to confess her identity and guarantee in the name of Klein to fight for more benefits for Aubrey in the future. In this way, what difference would there be between her and the imprinted person who replaced her under the control of the mysterious faction? Lakis, are you still thinking about what happened just now? A little. Hearing Lei Mingkai's question, Lakis slowly nodded. Actually, Lakis, you don't have to worry about it. Jamie Nara Asha may not have thought further than that. Just now, he secretly extended an olive branch to us only because of the changes in the situation in Scandinavia, as well as the sudden appearance of you, Audrey Sass. Me? Audrey Sass. This was Lakis's current identity in front of the public. The second daughter from the mysterious Sass family. Under the halo of the Scandinavian Prime Minister's family. Under the mysterious name of the second daughter of Sass, who had never shown herself to anyone. Lakis, who had transformed into Audrey Sass, naturally received most of the attention from the third camp countries. Lakis, who thought of the key point, shook her head slightly as a bitter smile appeared on her lips. She, who should have kept a low profile and investigated and seized the name of Lakis Klein, had unintentionally become the focus of the third camp countries once again. This is something I didn't expect, isn't it? Sometimes I wonder what kind of person I would be if I were to take off the name of Klein. The moonlight from the crescent moon in the night sky scattered on the surface of the sea, just like Lakis' current state of mind. What kind of person would you be? Lei Mingkai chuckled. Actually, I think that if you don't have the name of Klein, Lakis, you'll probably become more like an angel. Angel? Lakis was slightly taken aback. She was surprised that Lei Mingkai would use this word to describe her. Yes, angel. An angel who descended to the mortal world and brought songs of hope to the people. When he said this, Lei Mingkai's face was serious. So serious that Lakis could not believe Lei Mingkai's words. She subconsciously thought that this might be Lei Mingkai's flattery. Unfortunately, just as Lakis was about to speak, the chauffeur said, "Don't worry. Sir Kai, Miss Audrey. There seems to be someone waiting for us in front." Waiting for us? Hearing this, Lei Mingkai and Lakis both revealed a hint of surprise. Amidst the sound of waves crashing onto the shore, above the waves rolled up by the night wind, a pitch-black sports car was parked in front of the spacious observation deck that was specially built, and beside the pitch-black sports car, under the black hair that was swept up by the night wind and danced in the night sky, was a beautiful and serious face. Lund Mina Sahak. She actually appeared in front of Lei Mingkai and Lakis, who had just returned from the banquet. In such a manner. It seems that Prime Minister Sammy's hospitality is very good. You two look very well. Seeing the car with Ray Minkai and Lakis parked not far away, and seeing Ray Minkai and Lakis get out of the car, Lund Mina Sahak smiled and greeted them as if they were old friends. May I know why Miss Sahaka has stopped us at such a time? Ray Minkai looked left and right, and the white cat, State Zero, who was hiding in the dark, also reported back. Other than Lund Mina Sahak and Ray Minkai's side, there was no one else here who was confident. It's just that I'm a little bored at home. I came out to get some fresh air, and also to see my friend who is about to leave Aubrey. Lund Mina Sahak smiled and walked up to Lakis step by step. I'm very sorry about what happened on that island. Miss Audrey SAS. No. That was just an accident. Lakis shook her head, but Lund Mina Sahak answered first. Actually, we don't have to be so formal. Sir Kai, Miss Audrey, you can call me by my name, Mina. In exchange, I'll call you both by your names. How about that? That's fine too. Ray Minkai and Lakis naturally wouldn't refuse Lund Mina Sahak's request. With the other party's permission, shortening the other party's name appropriately might be an opportunity to get closer. So, Kai, Audrey. I wonder what plans you two have after leaving Aubrey? Lund Mina Sahak didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the topic. Ray Minkai and Lakis exchanged glances. Prepare to start a comprehensive diagnosis and medical treatment for Klaya. Lakis's answer was within Lund Mina Sahak's expectations. However, she wasn't satisfied. Audrey's decision is natural. But, Kai, what about you? Me? Ray Minkai's gaze and Lund Mina Sahak's met in the night sky. At this moment, Ray Minkai's eyes were already dark. This woman's gaze had already landed on the distant future. Yes. Don't you think we might have a chance to work together in the future? Lund Mina Sahak chuckled. She raised her right hand and pointed to the west against the night wind that swept in from the sea. At this moment, Lund Mina Sahak's gaze seemed to cross the ocean and the continent between Aubrey and Lund Mina Sahak's destination. It landed on the distant end. The west. The distant continent. Ray Minkai understood. It was the Battle of Victoria Airport. Indeed. Perhaps we'll have a chance to work together. Not perhaps, Kai. Lund Mina Sahak softly revealed a secret. A secret that not many people knew except for the upper echelons of the Earth Alliance. The third Battle of Victoria Airport is about to begin. What? The Earth Alliance is attacking Victoria early? Lei Minkai was shocked, but he quickly understood what was going on. The key to the Earth Alliance daring to advance the third Battle of Victoria Airport was probably Ray Minkai. The Archangel and the Gauda assault landed successfully in the Alaska headquarters. In order to leave the Earth Alliance headquarters smoothly, Ray Minkai handed over the OS program used by the natural people to the Earth Alliance. With the combination of the two, the impact of the two had begun to take effect. The early appearance of the Dark Assault was one of these effects. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai sighed in his heart. He didn't expect his little butterfly to really set off a gradually growing storm. Then, the person heading to Victoria Airport will be your brother, Lund Mina Sahak? As soon as Ray Minkai asked this question, Lund Mina Sahak sneered. No. The person heading to Victoria Airport isn't Lund Mina Sahak, but me, Lund Mina Sahak. After a pause, Lund Mina Sahak said again. It's a pity. Although Kai may have other expectations for my foolish brother's performance, just now I've already executed my foolish brother with my own hands. After all, when he recovered the Golden Heresy, he had been disconnected from Aubrey's headquarters and the Dawn Society for at least 18 hours. According to the information recovered from the island, they only need less than 10 hours to replace the original body with the photocopies under their control. Chapter 587. On the blue planet, there was a vast space that was gradually being stepped on by human footsteps. But this space that was defined as a new home by human beings had now become an important way to attack the blue planet that gave birth to human civilization in the midst of the human civil war. On the synchronous orbit of Earth, a fleet was quickly assembling. The members of this fleet were all from the fleets under Zaff's command. The purpose was to drop all the MSs deployed by Zaff's headquarters into this fleet at the right moment, aiming towards the blue planet below. In Aslan's pupils, the light emitted by the blue planet was reflected. He knew that this was just Earth refracting the light from the sun, but he couldn't help but imagine that it might be an invitation from Mother Earth. "Oh? So you're here, Aslan." At this moment, a magnetic voice came from the corridor behind him. Aslan retracted his gaze and looked back. He realized that it was the captain of his own team, Lulu Kreutzer. Captain Kreutzer. The silver mask reflected the blue light from Earth. His blonde hair swayed slightly under the microgravity. Kreutzer's tall and straight body landed lightly beside Aslan. "There's only the two of us here now. There's no need to be so reserved." Kreutzer smiled and turned his head to look at the blue planet outside the window. "Speaking of which, this is the first time you've been so close to Earth, Aslan. Right?" "Yes. This is basically the same as what the textbooks say. But I can't describe that feeling." Aslan's words made Kreutzer's smile gradually deepen. "Is that so? But, Aslan, you don't have to care too much about this feeling. This is the feeling that every wanderer who returns to their home planet from the vast space will have. Well, the feeling that can probably be similar to this feeling should be the feeling of a mother opening her arms to a wanderer returning home, and softly saying welcome home. Mother!" Kreutzer's words made Aslan slightly stunned, but he still lowered his head, not letting Kreutzer see the emotions on his face. "Yes, Mother. To all of humanity, Earth is undoubtedly a mother-like existence. No matter when, no matter what the situation is, the moment I see this blue planet completely in front of me, there will always be a burning feeling in my heart." Hearing Kreutzer's words, Aslan raised his head and looked at the silver mask. "Captain Kreutzer, did you think of your mother too?" "Mother." If Aslan could see through Kreutzer's face that was hidden under the mask, he would probably be frightened by that pair of cold and mocking eyes. However, Aslan couldn't see the change in that pair of eyes. He could only hear Kreutzer using his deep, magnetic voice to slowly speak. "Yes. Every time I see this beautiful blue planet in front of me, I think of my mother." After pausing for a moment, Kreutzer continued. "Aslan, do you know? There is an organization within the Earth Union that is obsessed with completely eliminating us regulators. Their slogan is for the blue and clear sky." "For the blue and clear sky." Aslan's heart trembled. Yes. Every time they launched an operation against Plant and Zaft, these people would always shout, "For the blue and clear sky," and pull the trigger, killing all the enemies in sight. Even. Kreutzer glanced at Aslan and said softly, "Even during Blood Valentine's Day on Eunice the 7th, it was the same." "What?" Aslan subconsciously took a step back and looked at Kreutzer with a shocked expression. Perhaps this was the first time Aslan heard of the Earth Union's performance during Blood Valentine's Day. At this moment, the details that Kreutzer mentioned had never appeared in Plant's official propaganda. Even in Zaft there was no record of this slogan. "Are you surprised, Aslan?" Kreutzer seemed to be very satisfied with Aslan's current performance. "No. It's just that." Aslan quickly calmed himself down and stood up again. He turned around and continued to look at the blue planet outside the window. "It's just that I don't understand why they did this." "Why?" Kreutzer's lips curled up slightly, but he didn't guide Aslan further. Instead, he raised his hand and patted Aslan's shoulder. "The answer to this question, you will probably have to find it yourself, Aslan. But... Aslan glanced at Kreutzer's right hand on his shoulder, then looked up at Kreutzer. But, no matter how popular you are, we are now at a critical moment when we are about to enter the battle. Aslan, don't let me down. After saying that, Kreutzer lightly tapped his feet and flew towards the aisle that led away from the observation deck. Beside Kreutzer's departing white figure, a patch of red quietly appeared. It was Alice Pompey. The red-clothed girl and the white-clothed Kreutzer passed each other as they saluted each other. The latter left the observation deck with a smile on his face. The former took over the latter's position beside Aslan. "What are you thinking about, Aslan?" The red figure landed lightly beside Aslan. Aslan, who had lived in space since he was a child, felt that the ease with which Aslan handled microgravity and how he should move was incredible. It was as if the red figure in front of him was a human who had lived in space since he was a child. "No. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about the battle we are about to start." Aslan shook his head slightly and pointed to the blue planet outside the window. "Earth? What a beautiful planet, Aslan. Speaking of which, you may not need to squeeze with others in the upcoming landing battle." Alice glanced at the blue planet, then shifted her gaze to Aslan and smiled softly. "Don't need to squeeze with others? But Sacred Shield Gauda can't break through the atmosphere alone." Aslan reacted quickly, but before he could finish, he was stopped by Alice's finger. "Do you want to know? Then come with me. That's my new masterpiece." As soon as she finished speaking, Alicia pulled Aslan to his feet and took him away from the observation deck with a tap of her foot. Among Neku, Isaac, Diego, and Nigger were in their own bodies, doing the last debugging before the landing battle. They were focused, and almost all of their minds were devoted to debugging their beloved machines. After a long time, Diego was the first to complete the debugging of his beloved machine, Storm Gauda. Phew! It's finally done. Earth's environmental parameters are really complicated. Even with the data from Gibraltar, it will take a lot of effort to adjust. Diego stretched lazily and shook his numb hands. Even an adjuster with excellent programming ability would inevitably feel a headache when faced with complex and enormous environmental climate parameters. "Diego, check it again. You're definitely lazy." Looking at Diego's expression of relief and suffering, Isaac was instantly infuriated. "Huh? How? Storm Gauda is mainly firepower support. As long as the parameters of the weapon are modified properly for environmental changes, there won't be much of a problem. After all, Storm Gauda doesn't need to rush up like Dual Gauda." "You!" Diego's annoying appearance made Isaac explode on the spot. He prepared to rush out of Dual Gauda's cockpit with his hands and feet, rushed to Storm Gauda's side, pulled Diego out, and beat him up. However, a commotion came from the entrance of the passageway, allowing Diego to luckily escape this calamity. "Then what the hell is that guy doing?" Isaac, who had just rushed out of the cockpit, saw a man and a woman appear at the entrance of the passageway. He immediately stopped charging towards Storm Gauda's body and turned around to look at the man and woman. How enviable! Probably being handsome is also a kind of strength, isn't it? Yitzhak. Diego, who had poked his head out of Storm Gauda's cockpit, also saw the man and woman. "What a joke!" Isaac growled, but he didn't pay attention to it and waved his arm forcefully, almost falling into an embarrassing state of rolling in midair. Fortunately, as soon as Isaac's body posture began to lose control, Diego, who had already foreseen it, reached out and pulled him back. "Isaac, if you're envious, why don't you find one for yourself?" "What a joke! Diego, you're deliberately making fun of me, aren't you?" Isaac, who seemed to have his tail stepped on, grabbed Diego's collar on the spot. Diego was so scared that he raised his hands repeatedly, indicating that he was just joking. It was noisy here, but Aslan was shocked by the things in front of him. Sacred Shield Gauda. Aslan was naturally very familiar with this. But what was the matter with the giant object, which was 20 meters tall and 15 meters wide, that was placed quietly beside sacred shield Gouda, that was like an elongated triangle, with a certain arc of wing tips on both sides, and a certain proportion of golden lines drawn on the pitch-black surface. Aslan, have you tried surfing? Alicia was very satisfied with Aslan's astonishment. Her laughter was as clear as a bell. Surfing? Aslan shook his head slightly. Although the environment of April City was very good, it was not luxurious enough to allow people to surf at will. Is that so? It's okay. I've designed a program that will allow you to easily master the meteor pedal in a short period of time. Meteor pedal? What's the name of this thing? As he spoke, an idea flashed in Aslan's mind. This is the new equipment that allows sacred shield Gouda to break through the atmosphere alone? Alicia smiled sweetly. Yes. This is the key equipment that allows sacred shield Gouda to break through the atmosphere. Under the sky. It was the barren land that was perennially hot. Even though the development of human civilization had already set foot in the vast space, this barren land was still swaying back and forth between barbaric primitive tribes and modern technological civilization. It was as if on an endless grassland, wildebeests and zebras were moving along a route that had not changed for thousands of years, heading towards a new and more fertile habitat. Amidst this massive migration of animals, there were hunters hidden in the long withered grass. Roar! A low roar exploded from the distance. The hunters hidden on the left and right sides of the migration route suddenly moved. They moved quickly, dispersing the obstacles around the target. They divided the work between the left and right, pinning the target to the ground and biting the target to death with their sharp claws and teeth. In an instant, the hot air was filled with the smell of blood. Roar! The wildebeests were bitten to death by a few female lions. After confirming that the target had been bitten to death and that there were no hateful hyenas around, they called out to the big tree in the distance. State Zero. Your little wife is calling you. Sitting on the top of the tree, Ray Minkai took advantage of the coolest moment under the shade of the tree to put down the binoculars in his hand and teased the pure white lion lying under the tree. Shut up! The pure white lion that was resting under the tree growled and refuted Ray Minkai. Unexpectedly, the lion that was lying next to it was frightened. After retreating a few steps, it hesitantly took a few steps forward and surrendered in front of the pure white lion. It lowered its huge head and waited for the pure white lion to reprimand it. Get out of my way. I have no interest in getting involved in your business. Seeing the lion's submission, State Zero flew into a rage. Roar! Amidst the pure white lion's roar, the brown lion fled and went straight to the place where the female lion had called out. TSK. Troublesome. A few days ago, Ray Minkai and Lakis, who had returned to Scandinavia, received an invitation from the Eurasian Special Envoy, Bernard. The Battle of Victoria Airport was about to begin. Therefore, after settling Lakis and Klaya down, Lay Minkai came to this vast African grassland in the name of a tourist to observe the situation and wait for an opportunity. However, on the first day that Ray Minkai entered the grassland, he was attacked by a pride of lions. At first, Ray Minkai thought that he was unlucky to be captured by a pride of lions. However, when the white cat State Zero suddenly revealed his pure white lion form, Ray Minkai realized that the pride of lions was coming for State Zero. Why? Do you want to leave some souvenirs here? After Ray Minkai finished speaking, the big tree under him shook violently. Under the tree, the flustered and exasperated pure white lion slapped the big tree. Minkai! You bastard! If I had known, I wouldn't have followed you to this damned grassland. I'm a metal life form, not a weak life form. Ray Minkai's laughter came from the shaking tree. He was not afraid of State Zero's threat. If State Zero wanted to, he would have turned into a giant metal beast and razed this area to the ground. Suddenly, the pure white lion put down his sharp claws and looked towards the southwest. Kai! The people from Earth Union are all here. Ray Minkai raised the binoculars in his hand again and looked towards the southwest. After a long while, he slowly put down the binoculars. Yes, this grassland is going to suffer. Chapter 588. Rumble. As the dark clouds swept across the sky, an oppressive atmosphere enveloped Victoria Airport. The humans couldn't help but shrink their necks and stretch their necks to look into the depths of the endless plains. Those bastards from the Earth Alliance won't come back, right? A young soldier gripped the fully automatic rifle in his hand and looked nervously at the plains in the distance. A few days ago, the scouts discovered traces of the Earth Alliance's army near Victoria Airport. They even engaged in a skirmish with the Earth Alliance's equipment. Even though there were victories and defeats, the battles told Zaf's army, who had just conquered Victoria Airport, that the previous owner of the airport had returned. Cheer up! If we can defeat the Earth Alliance once, we can defeat them a second time and a third time. The young Zaft soldier was suddenly patted on the back. He was so frightened that he turned back to look. Captain? You? Before the young soldier finished speaking, he heard a scream. Get down! The sky and earth turned upside down. The moment he was pressed to the ground by a huge force, the young soldier saw countless rays of light blooming above the dark clouds. Starlight! The moment the whistling sound tore through the sky, countless flames bloomed in the sky. After drawing an arc in the sky with lightning speed, they fell toward the defensive position built around Victoria Airport below. Amidst the whistling sounds that tore through human hearing, the fireballs that fell like meteors drowned out the defensive position. In an instant, the continuous roaring explosions and the rumbling thunder in the sky became a symphony, wantonly announcing their presence on this land. Artillery fire! This was artillery fire! This was the artillery fire from the Earth Alliance. Zaf's scout's discovery was correct. The Earth Alliance had returned to Victoria Airport and fired the first shot on this thunderous day. No. It should be the first shot. Rumble! In the sky, thunder rumbled. Under the dark clouds, the cannons rumbled. Standing on the bridge of the Bonaparte, a large land warship in active service of the Earth Alliance, a blond man with a smug look on his face was watching the artillery positions behind the Bonaparte display their might. As a businessman and the director of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, this was the first time he saw such a shocking scene. After the horizontal expansion, the artillery position, which was nearly 2 kilometers long, continuously fired shells at preset coordinates that could be adjusted according to the frontline strike data at any time. Boom! 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 On the horizon, there were flames that kept lighting up. Not long after these flames lit up, the roar of the shells raging on the ground rolled in this direction. It's truly breathtaking. Humans are a race full of destructive desires. The blond man had a satisfied smile on his face. He was obviously very satisfied with the scene in front of him. In the end, now that the Earth Alliance was able to gather such a large force here, it was also the result of him dealing with the internal affairs of the Earth Alliance. Unlike those timid officers of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, he was younger and sharper. Naturally, he wouldn't let go of a good opportunity to let the Earth Alliance recapture Victoria Airport. The failure of the man known as the Desert Tiger was actually seen by some people in the Earth Alliance as Zaf's bait? This was simply laughable. I heard that our foreign aid has arrived? After despising those timid officers in his heart, the blond man looked back at the officer standing beside him. From the organization and battle plan, the officer standing beside the blond man was undoubtedly the commander of this attack. However, because the blond man was the director of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, the organization behind the Earth Alliance, even the top commander of the army didn't dare to offend him. Yes, the reinforcements from the Sahak and SAS families have arrived. The blond man nodded slightly. Sure enough, in the face of righteousness, even the countries that claim to be neutral have sensible people. Very good. After a pause, the blond man continued. Let them be in charge of the flanks. As for the front line, let our new product be in charge. Yes. Crackle. In the dark clouds, the wild snakes danced wildly. The twisted bodies, or wantonly shuttled between the clouds, broke through the clouds and plunged straight into the ground. The lightning tore apart the humans' gazes at the plains at this moment. Amidst the flashes that tore apart the increasingly dark space, soldiers with nervous faces and agile hands and feet were constantly shuttling between the positions of the Earth Alliance according to orders. They either boarded armored vehicles or tanks and waited for the order to attack, or jumped onto trucks loaded with ammunition to transport the ammunition urgently needed by these artillery positions. In this busy scene, a man and a woman stood out from the surrounding tense scene, but they were also wearing masks. They were standing high and looking at the busy crowd below. It seems that the Earth Alliance has made a lot of preparations for this attack. The woman with a black mask on her face and black hair tied into a ponytail looked at the busy crowd and said softly, "After all, it's about the next action. If this Victoria Airport can't be recaptured, then the next target of the Earth Alliance is very likely to be Aubrey." The man with the white mask said calmly, causing the woman to frown deeply. "I understand this. That's why I'm standing here. But, why are you wearing a mask like me? According to the traditions of the Sahak family, not many people should know of your existence, right?" The woman with the black mask was naturally Lundmina Sahak. After personally executing Lund-Jinar Sahak, who was supposed to be here, Lund-Minar Sahak appeared as a replacement. Just like Lei Minkai, Lund-Minar Sahak was wearing a mask that covered his face. "Aren't you the same, Sir Knight?" The man who was called a knight by Lund-Mina Sahak was none other than our protagonist Rei Minkai. "That's because there are some difficult reasons, Mina." "Then I have one too, don't I?" Lund-Mina Sahak's eyes, hidden under the mask, moved as she looked at Rei Minkai's white mask. Rumble. Kacha. At that moment, a thick bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, and a downpour came crashing down, drenching the busy soldiers. Walla lala. Raindrops bigger than peanuts fell on the tents, dense and loud. One couldn't help but wonder if the tents above their heads could withstand the storm. In just a few minutes, many small puddles had formed in the low-lying areas. The soldiers who were running to find shelter from the rain became mud figures in the blink of an eye, looking particularly pathetic. "The cannons are about to stop." Lund-Mina Sahak raised her gaze and looked at the rear of the camp. The cannons were no longer as powerful as before when the storm came. No. It should be strengthened. This may be an opportunity for the Earth Alliance. An opportunity. Rei Minkai's words made Lund-Mina Sahak slightly stunned. Yes. Rei Minkai looked at the large land warship Bonaparte parked in the center of the camp. He remembered that this large land warship named Bonaparte would become the mothership that destroyed Gouda in the near future. It could accommodate an MS form of 56.3 meters and an MA form of 38 meters. The mothership of the Gouda that destroyed Gouda was naturally able to accommodate an MS that was less than half the size of Gouda. In the Stargazer chapter, Shur-1, who completed the mission, bumped into Mu and others who were escorting the unconscious Stella for treatment in the mothership. Although there were many reasons why Zaft was able to seize Victoria Airport from the Earth Alliance, among these reasons, there was one that couldn't be ignored. That was Zaft's MS. Upon hearing Rei Minkai's words, Lund-Mina Sahak thought for a moment and had already guessed the situation that they might face next. "You're saying that Zaft's MS might ambush the Earth Alliance's cannons?" Rei Minkai smiled slightly. "Isn't this very likely?" The arrival of the storm reduced the intensity of the cannon's attacks by at least 30%. Moreover, under the dark clouds that are so dark that only lightning can illuminate, the light emitted by the cannon's roars is undoubtedly an extremely conspicuous signal. Therefore, in order to resolve the bombardment of the Victoria Airport as soon as possible, Zaft will definitely send MS troops to ambush them. Indeed. But these are things that both Zaft and the Earth Alliance should have thought of. What I'm worried about is only there. Ray Minkai stretched out his finger and pointed at the dark clouds above his head that covered the sky, and lightning wandered freely. Lundmina Sahak looked up but didn't react for a moment. The meaning of Ray Minkai's words was clear. How Zaft took over the Victoria Airport might be the deciding factor in this battle when the battle here reached its climax. Boom! Boom! Just as Lundmina Sahak was thinking, a strange roar suddenly exploded behind the cannons. The roar wasn't the loud roar of the cannons, but the sound of something exploding. Emergency! Your Excellencies! The frontline command has just issued an order. Our rear cannons are under enemy MS attack. Your Excellencies, please attack immediately. As expected, Zaft's MS attacked the cannons. Ray Minkai and Lundmina Sahak looked at each other and immediately split up. They ran towards the two hills, covered by huge canvases. In the splashing rain, in the lightning that tore through the darkness, two steel bodies covered by canvases slowly stood up and pulled out all the nails that held the canvases in place to prevent them from being blown away. They wantonly displayed their steel bodies under the rolling thunder. Roar! A fierce wind blew and the canvas was blown up. A steel beast with sharp lines all over its body, but it was incomparably majestic, fearless of the might of heaven and earth. It stepped on a small hill, raised its huge steel head, and roared at the sky, causing the joint soldiers hiding in the tent to be dumbfounded. That's Zaft's Baku? What are you talking about? That's a lion. How can Zaft's Baku look like this? Aren't you going to modify it? Under the tent, the Alliance soldiers who were soaked all over stared blankly at the steel lion charging towards the rear of the cannons. For a moment, no one could guess the true identity of this steel lion. Kai, this method of yours is really ingenious. You actually disguised Baku as a huge steel lion? Amidst the torrential rain, a mech with streaks of golden radiance appeared and disappeared in the darkness, accompanying the steel lion that was sprinting all the way. It's just a little trick. In the Battle of Victoria Airport, Ray Minkai could only use Baku and Dark Assault. The former had already been known in the battle with the Desert Tiger, so it was not easy to use it openly. The Dark Assault had not yet been repaired and further modified. Therefore, Ray Minkai had no choice but to use the Long-Toothed Lion 0, his trump card. Of course, in the face of the Earth Alliance's high-level officials, Ray Minkai would still use the name of Baku as a shield. Although the design of the long-toothed lion was somewhat in conflict with the current MS design concept of this world, after considering the various strange factors of the body created by the special group of mercenaries and scrap dealers, the higher-ups of the Earth United did not care too much. After all, for them, as long as Ray Minkai could help them take down this Victoria Airport, the mission was already completed. Apart from that, they wouldn't even consider what methods Ray Minkai would use. Little trick. Lundmi Sahak's gaze moved on the screen, carefully observing the details of the sharp steel armor on the long-toothed Lion 0. The more he observed, the more certain Lundmi Sahak was that the body in front of him was likely not a modified Baku body used by Zaft. I see the enemy. 5 Xeon. They really put in a lot of effort. Ray Minkai didn't know that Lundmi Sahak was observing the long-toothed Lion 0, but after the radar locked onto Xeon, who was attacking the artillery position, he immediately made a choice. The 3 on the left are mine. The 1 on the right is yours. Me nah. As soon as he finished speaking, the plasma engine on the back of the long-toothed Lion 0 exploded. The torrential rain that suppressed human vision to a range of 20 meters was suddenly raised to subsonic speed in the blink of an eye. Woo! Amidst the torrential rain, the Long Fong Lion's berserk gallop created a gust of wind that suppressed the rumbling of thunder for a short period of time. Taking advantage of the fact that the three Xeon mechs were unable to react in time, the Long Fong Lion leapt into the air like a meteor and crashed into the attacking formation of the three Xeon mechs. Shwa! In the curtain of rain, a golden light bloomed, and the chest of a Xeon was suddenly cut open, revealing the power unit inside and the cockpit that had already been vaporized by the laser claw. Boom! The Xeon lost its power. The soulless Xeon fell to the ground with a loud bang, creating a huge splash and drowning the surrounding cannons. The remaining Xeon were frightened and took a step back. They raised their heavy assault rifles and pointed at the Type 0 Fong Lion. Roar! Facing the muzzle of the gun, the steel lion fearlessly stepped on the fallen Xeon and roared. Chapter 589. Pitter-patter. Snakes danced wildly in the sky. Under the dark clouds, the steel behemoth stepped on the silent Xeon. It looked up at the two Xeon in front of it and let out a low roar that even the rolling thunder could not suppress. What kind of monster is that? Baku? The Xeon on the left had the same question as the previous Earth Alliance soldiers, but this question was destined to be unanswered. Ka-cha! Above the sky, the moment lightning flashed through the dark clouds, the steel behemoth tore through the rain curtain and rushed towards the Xeon in front of it like an arrow. Da-da-da-da! Without hesitation, at the moment the thunder exploded, the two Xeon also did not hesitate to pull the trigger at the same time as the Twin Fong Lion Zero attacked. They shot wildly at the Twin Fong Lion Zero. The moment the whistling bullets rushed out from the heavy assault rifle's muzzle, it relied on its own huge kinetic energy to open up a bullet path in the overwhelming rain curtain and rushed towards the Twin Fong Lion Zero. However, before these bullets could hit the Twin Fong Lion Zero, the Twin Fong Lion Zero, which was accelerating in a straight line, suddenly disappeared from the sight of the two Xeon. The wind pressure caused by the Twin Fong Lion Zero's high-speed movement suddenly stagnated and was immediately submerged by the downpour. Disappeared? Where did it go? Quick! Maintain the formation! The Xeon on the right was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. He pulled the Xeon on the left and stood back to back, looking at the rain curtain that almost drowned the sky and the earth. Walala! The thick raindrops continued to pound against the cold armor of the Xeon and the heavy assault rifle in the hands of the Xeon. The dense sound of the raindrops assaulted the hearing of the two Xeon pilots. The Xeon pilot on the left could not bear the sound and subconsciously reached out his hand to turn off the system that monitored the outside world. This action may not be a big deal under normal circumstances, but on this battlefield, where the enemy had disappeared, any trace of movement could lead to defeat or even death. However, the sound of the thick raindrops constantly hitting the Xeon's armor and the heavy assault rifle in the hands was too annoying. It was almost like a ridicule that dragged the two pilots into a whirlpool of anxiety. Walala! The torrential rain continued. However, the Xeon on the left was no longer receiving sounds from the outside world. All that was left was the faint sound of machinery and the breathing of the pilot in the cockpit. Where is it? Strangely, without the sound of the thunderstorm outside, Xeon was unable to calm down. Instead, with the meaningless sound of the mechanical operation in the cockpit and the gradually heavier breathing, the anxiety of not being able to find the enemy grew stronger and stronger. It almost took over the heart of the pilot. Calm down. Now, the enemy is waiting for us to reveal our true colors. The Xeon on the right seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with its comrade, but its pilot did not expect that when his comrade had turned off the external sound system, he had also turned off the communication channel by mistake. Thus, without being able to hear any sound from the outside world, let alone the voices of his comrades, the pilots finally went crazy under the increasing pressure. Ah! Get out here! Da-da-da-da! The pilot, who was dominated by anxiety and pressure, held the trigger in his hand tightly. He let the Xeon under his control take a step forward and shoot randomly in the surroundings. He even let out a crazy roar as he looked at the bullets that tore through the rain. Die. 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 Die for me. Give me. Xeon, who was on the right, hurriedly turned around and tried to stop his comrade's crazy actions. But unexpectedly, the moment he turned around, a black shadow suddenly appeared from the rain and pressed him to the ground like a mountain pressing down on him from top to bottom. Moreover, a familiar golden light flashed the moment the Xeon fell to the ground. Bang! There was an explosion, a ray of fire. The Xeon, who was pressed down by the black shadow, fell into dead silence on the spot. Walla la! In the torrential rain, the Xeon, who was shooting crazily in the surroundings, seemed to have noticed something strange behind him. He quickly turned around and, in the splashing rain, quickly turned the muzzle and aimed behind him. However, before he could pull the trigger again, the black shadow rushed over. Gotcha! The violent friction between metal, even if the external sound capture system was not turned on, the pilot sitting in the Xeon's cockpit could still hear some movements. It was the hand. Xeon's right hand, which was holding the heavy assault rifle, was bitten by the black shadow. Monster! Monster! The remaining Xeon pilot stared at the scene in front of him. Xeon's right hand was being bitten by a steel beast. He could even clearly see the armor on Xeon's right hand being constantly pressed until it broke, revealing the circuit that was protected by it. The Xeon pilot, who was unwilling to lose, moved his hands continuously. This Xeon suddenly raised his left hand and slammed it down on the steel beast's head. However, before the heavy punch could break through the rain and hit the steel beast's head, the other party decisively let go of Xeon's right hand and lowered its body, narrowly avoiding Xeon's heavy left punch. This was not because the long-fanged lion was afraid of Xeon's counterattack, but because it had never cared about Xeon's fist. It let go of its huge mouth so easily because Xeon's right hand had been forcefully crushed by it. Kai. Last hit. Okay. The crouching long-fanged lion stomped its four limbs, and like a cannonball, it fiercely sent Xeon flying. Roar! Under the rain, Xeon, who fell heavily on the ground, was enveloped in a golden light. As the golden light faded away, a terrifying wound appeared on Xeon's chest. Even the cockpit had been melted away, making it seem like an exceptionally terrifying wound. Boom! The explosion made the long-fanged lion, who had just finished off 3 Xeons, turn its head and look to the other side. Kai. That little girl who learned to play with a mask like you is gone, right? State Zero's mouth was unforgiving. No. Mina will not be defeated in the hands of small fries. Among the princesses of the outer sky, Mina Sahak's performance was more dazzling than the main character carries. Is that so? State Zero laughed a few times, but suddenly stared at the rain. A huge black shadow was slowly stepping out of the rain, and stood in front of the long-fanged lion. In the white rainstorm, the body, which was mainly black with gold embellishments, slowly raised its right hand, and showed its battle record to the long-fanged lion. It was a Xeon with only half of its body left. It seems that Sir Knight has solved this farce earlier than me. The cold wreckage was casually thrown away by Jean Hedwan, and in the midst of the splashing mud, Mina Sahak's admiring voice sounded. These small things are not worth mentioning. Ray Minkai smiled slightly, and moved his gaze towards the direction of the large land carrier, Bonaparte. The battle here ended in such a short time. He believed that the commander of the Earth Alliance army, Ray Minkai, was just a blond man who had seen from afar. Mutta Yazi Lars would soon know about the situation here. Just that, Ray Minkai's gaze moved up again, and looked at the dark clouds that were still shrouded in lightning. Zaf's specialty, orbital airborne, was still the biggest threat. Just as Ray Minkai predicted, after the enemy that attacked the artillery position was quickly dealt with, the scattered artillery positions began to gather again, and roared towards Zaf's defense line at the fastest speed. Mutta Yazi Lars already knew the performance of Ray Minkai and Lund Mina Sahak. Looking at the battle footage that was transmitted back from the rear, Mutta Yazi Lars's right hand lightly tapped on the chair's handle. He did not expect that the foreign aid that was invited by the Eurasian Federation would have such strength. In a 2 versus 5 situation, they dealt with the enemy's attack with a complete victory. Moreover, that strange-looking beast-type body, which was suspected to be modified from Baku, easily killed 3 Zeons in a 1 versus 3 situation. One must know that before the trump card he brought had been revealed, the casualty ratio of Zeon and Earth's combined armored forces was 1:6. Is this an unexpected surprise? Lars Mutta Yazi smiled, then stood up and waved his right hand. Inform the front line. Prepare for the assault. In addition, let the Lion and Sahak's body participate in the assault at the front line. Yes. No one dared to refute Lars Mutta Yazi's order, and no one dared to be slow in transmitting his order. Therefore, before the Teeved Lion and the Golden Heresy left the artillery position, Lars Mutta Yazi's order was transmitted. Kai. It seems that we will have to pay a price this time. Looking at the order to be the vanguard, Lund Mina Sahak's eyes flashed with reluctance, then he looked at the Teeved Lion. No. It's not the price. Maybe the enemy's forces on the front line are not enough to make us pay the price. The enemy's real killing move should be the orbital airborne that could appear at any time. Is it? Obviously, Lund Mina Sahak didn't think of this. Perhaps, even Lars Mutta Yazi didn't think of it, right? Even so far, the Earth Alliance had encountered groups of Gene airborne troops thrown over their heads by Zaft countless times. Let's go. Ray Minkai didn't have the intention to tell Lars Mutta Yazi this information that might come true. Therefore, the Teeved Lion and the Golden Heresy machine rushed toward the front line that had begun to be covered in flames. The rainstorm gradually subsided, but the dark clouds above the sky were still dark. The oppressive black clouds pressed down on the city, adding to the aura of death on the smoke-filled battlefield. Da-da-da-da! The heavy assault rifle in Zeon's hands kept hissing. Zila! Boom! During the surprise attack on Earth's combined artillery position, the Baku troops that didn't appear also appeared on the battlefield. Relying on their high mobility, they provided firepower for Zeon while quickly weaving through the battlefield, looking for any opportunity to defeat Earth's combined attack. 1. When the light beam broke through the sky, the rain instantly evaporated, and a Baku that had nowhere to escape was pierced through and exploded. Kai. Isn't the number of enemies a bit too much? The Golden Heresy machine followed closely behind the Teeved Lion and provided cover fire for the high-speed mobile Teeved Lion. No, it's still normal. Based on the importance of Victoria Airport, the 8 Zeon and 10 Baku that were blocking the Teeved Lion and the Golden Heresy machine were probably only a part of Zaft's forces stationed at Victoria Airport. Is that so? It seems that we still have to suffer for a while. Following the arrowhead formed by the tusked Lion Type 0 and the heretic Golden Mech were the armored troops of the Eurasian Federation to attack Victoria Airport. Although the momentum was great, it was just an appetizer for Zeon and Baku's combined MS forces. They were able to persist until now thanks to the Teeved Lion and the Golden Heresy machine. These two extremely eye-catching machines attracted the attention of Zaft's pilots. Roar! The Teeved Lion lowered its body and avoided the attack of the electromagnetic cannon Baku that was waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack. Then, with a kick of its 4 limbs, the 2 plasma engines on its back exploded, and it turned into a stream of light that rushed towards the electromagnetic cannon Baku. Clang! In the blink of an eye, the sound of metal being cut resounded through the sky. The electromagnetic cannon Baku fell to the ground, leaving only 2 halves of the neatly cut wreckage that splashed a burst of mud. Monster! That is Earth's MS. The Teeved Lion instantly cut the electromagnetic cannon Baku into 2 halves, startling the surrounding Zaft soldiers. It also made the Baku soldiers, who were ravaging the Earth's armored forces, collectively turn their muzzles and launch a fierce attack on the teethed lion, which seemed to be the most threatening target at the moment. The intensity of the offensive even forced the golden heresy machine behind the teethed lion to avoid the sharp edge, thus choosing to take a detour, looking for an opportunity to break these Baku soldiers one by one. Boom! Boom! The missile came from the side. The flash of the electromagnetic cannon and the thunder above the black clouds were particularly eye-catching. All of these attacks were directed at the Long Fong Lion's State Zero. Buzz! Boom! In the flames ejected from the plasma engine of the Type Zero, several Mach rings appeared one after another. The Type Zero suddenly turned into a white lightning, and with a very fast speed, it left behind the annihilation firepower net created by the electromagnetic gun Baku and the guided missile Baku behind. Roar! In the continuous roar of the explosion, the teethed lion plunged into the midst of the Baku soldiers. In the blink of an eye, the Baku soldiers were drowned by the explosion and the debris scattered like snow on this barren land. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.